I apologize in advance for any my cats are very vocal and they also just love to make themselves known when I'm on Zoom. So they get I think like especially my female cat gets so excited about the idea of like people who are talking. She's thrilled.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah, no, one of mine is sitting like right behind, licking her butt. All right. Welcome, listener, to a special bonus episode of We Read It Midnight because Wuthering Heights just came out. Wuthering Heights in quotation marks just came out. And I got to talk about it. And I'm so glad to welcome here today Caro slash at Difficult Woman Reads, which I asked you to come because so I was like, I want to make a short episode, fun episode about Wuthering Heights. And then I kept seeing your threads and I was like, this person is more eloquent and like than I could ever be about this. And I would probably end up just like spending half the episode like reading your threads anyway. So I was
thank
like,
you. Thank
I would
you.
love to have her come on because my history with Wuthering Heights, the book, is rough. So I, similarly to Emerald Fennell, who's
Hmm.
the director, listener, for those of you that don't know, I read the book for the first time when I was 12, and I
Hmm.
fucking hated it. I also hated Jane Eyre, so I developed like a deep personal hatred of like the Brontes. And I did reread Jane Eyre as an adult, and I still hated it. So I was like not confident about Wuthering Heights, but I did reread it very recently because like two of my friends, like two from like separate like friend groups, were both like, "Oh my God, I love Wuthering Heights like so much," and I was like, "Okay, so there still has to be like something here,"
Hmm.
and I liked it better.
Yeah, a little
I
bit.
thought it was fun. I thought Mr. Lockwood, R.I.P. Mr. Lockwood in the movie, but like he's like such a loser that he's hilarious.
Oh, I think he's like an underrated. He's so somebody described him to me recently as somebody who just like constantly like and I do think from what I remember this happens in the book where like he falls over and gets a nosebleed because he's so mad. And like
Yes,
that is
yes,
so he is arguably the most relatable person because of that. Like I have
yeah.
never gotten a nosebleed because I'm angry, but I feel like I'm like constantly this close and I kind of want to be there, you know?
I get as someone who gets nosebleeds like regularly, like I had one this morning. Honestly, that's like hilarious. Just like, cause like getting a nosebleed is like so silly
Oh
to
yeah.
me. And I feel like I can say this again because I get nosebleeds all the time. Like, cause like you just start, suddenly you're like, oh, there's something on my face.
Oh yeah.
And so just like him being like mad and then just like getting a nosebleed.
Yeah, it's so like pathetic that I feel like, and I say that, you know, the nosebleed community, I don't mean that towards you, I mean that towards Mr. Lockwood in particular. It's so pathetic that I feel like it sums up his character perfectly. You're just like, oh, this is somebody who sees a ghost and is like telling his landlord, but is also like, God, I still have to get rent. You know what I mean? Like the rent is still due. Mr. Heathcliff is not gonna let me. Heathcliff is not like it
No.
makes so much sense that he's a landlord in a lot of ways. Like really
Yeah.
we're coalescing, you know, it's all coming together in a loop. But yeah, I'm I'm not surprised that you didn't like it or that you I'm glad that you liked it a little bit more on this.
I like enjoyed, I think I was, because Wuthering Heights is the book is like so dense. And at 12 years old, I think you're just not really able. And I was also like a secret, like hadn't admitted to myself that I preferred reading romance novels, but like I was like, where's the HEA? Like I was, you know,
Oh,
without having the terminology. But now, like reading it now, I'm like, oh wow, like this is saying a lot about class and race and white supremacy and like all of these things, and even patriarchy. And watching the movie yesterday, I was like, Emerald Fennell really said, thank you. That was too long. I'm not going to read that. Anyway,
it's so bad. It's so and I'm not saying like I obviously like I was there was a point where I was like, I am not seeing this in theaters on principle. And
yeah.
then I think that if it had been projected to like make like $20 or whatever, I think maybe I
Mhm.
would have been like, I'm not seeing it on principle. I'm not helping this movie needs to flop. But once I saw that it was projected to be big either way, I still might have possibly I was still maybe thinking about looking for different means of seeing it. But then on Valentine's Day at like 7 p.m. I was just like, I'm just gonna see this. I'm gonna rip off the
Yeah.
Band-Aid. And I was not surprised. I will be completely honest. I am an Emerald Fennell hater to the bone. I've seen both of her other movies. I've read the book for Bad Cinderella.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know Bad Cinderella. I forgot that she did Bad Cinderella.
Yes, 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 yes.
Oh, I think in my head, I mostly blamed Andrew Lloyd Webber for that.
He should be blamed for most things.
Yeah.
Um, I'm familiar with her work. Wuthering Heights is like it is a foundational book for me. I actually read it at 13 for the first time.
Hmm.
I read it because Stephanie Meyer said that it influenced her writing of Eclipse.
They quote it.
Yes,
And that
yes.
was that was always part of the reason that I disliked Wuthering Heights because I was like, there are some banger lines in that, but I hated it.
I know. And I'll be honest, like I can't tell you why 13-year-old me was like, "Yes, I actually really love this," but I did really love it. I don't know what that says about me. I do not think there's anything in particular that like I it was like a pure taste thing. And I think that I read Jane Eyre after. I liked
Hmm.
Jane Eyre a lot, but not as much as Wuthering Heights. I went on to get a Wuthering Heights tattoo at one point in my life. It still is
Mm.
here. I'm very happy that I have it because I'm like, I kind of want another one, but I'm like, I can't, I can't, I have to pick a quote that was definitely not in the movie if I do
Yeah,
that. You
and
know what
that's the
I mean?
problem is that the movie included most of the bangers.
It did, except it missed a lot of the ones that happened in the scene because he sees her before she dies in the book. And I think that it's so
Hmm.
weird. Spoiler alert for everybody. I think it's so weird that she had Kathy die without having that one last scene with
Yeah.
Heathcliff. It's like arguably the most, not just like full of bangers and incredibly emotional. It's like the best scene, I think, for like the love story aspect.
Hmm.
And it's arguably like the most erotically transgressive in the book because like they do, I double checked because I remember somebody was saying on Instagram, and I've just become so pedantic and annoying about this stuff. They were like, Kathy and Heathcliff had an amazing love and they never even kissed. And I was like, no, I think they do in fact kiss when
They
he comes.
embrace.
Yeah, they embrace and he's like, kiss me again. But also don't because, screw you and you're killing me by dying. But classic Heathcliff. And I always found it, I think as a kid, I was like, oh, I'm really happy. I'm very impressed that they are super sort of cheating on her husband and she's like about to die in 7 hours.
She's like fully cucking him.
She's fully cucking him, much in a much better way than she does in the movie, in my opinion. And he's like on the other side of the door, basically. Like Nellie's like, you guys
Yeah.
wrap it up. He's coming up the stairs. Linton is right
Yeah.
here. I think that it appealed to like a part of me. I grew up on like daytime soap operas, like
Hmm.
watching them every like I was homeschooled for a period of time. Not
Classic.
yes, yes, very not in a very different and relaxed way. And I watched daytime soap operas almost every day for a while. And I think I was like this is great. This is cool. They remind me of like Sonny and Carly from General Hospital. And like as I grew up, I think I developed a more like nuanced perception, but I definitely was like glomming onto Kathy and Heathcliff from like a young age. And I think
Yeah.
overall, I started to enjoy the other aspects like as I got older, obviously. I love it.
Yeah. So let's like talk about the fact because obviously like it had such an influence on you. It had such an influence on our queen Stephanie Meyer. And it, for better or for worse, imprinted on Emerald Fennell. And it is, particularly when you're young, the like romance, the lowercase romance, because it doesn't have an HEA, at least
Mhm.
not for Kathy and Heathcliff. That's what sticks with people. Like Kathy and Heathcliff, for better or for worse, are one of the great iconic like couples in Western literature. Heathcliff is arguably like the OG like dark romance
Mhm.
hero. So like why does that stick with people? Even though like Kathy dies at 50%, Heathcliff was already a dick and then spends like the rest of the 50% being a
Mhm.
dick to children. Like,
Yeah.
why do we still love him?
I think that, well, I actually just kind of did like an unintentional sort of test where I don't think, I'm sure my mom's read the book. My sister, I don't think has. And they both, like, my mom was interested in seeing the movie. My sister was interested in seeing the movie. And I was like trying to sort of dissuade them. And I sent a quote that I knew was not going to be there in full in the movie. And I do think that it, like, the movie sort of chops it up a little bit. The I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. But he
Yes.
goes so much harder in the book where he's like, this is unbearable because, like, this is this also the
Yeah.
scene where he's bashing his head against a tree. And I was like, man,
Yeah.
as a joke, I was like, if only somebody would say this about me when I die. And my sister's immediate response was, I wish they would say that to me when I'm alive. And obviously she was joking, but I do think there's like a deep, I think that for women, there is a deep, and I think that dark romance keys into this idea that like, and I know that some people, especially recently, are very into this idea of romance novels depicting healthy romance. I do
Mhm.
not think that there is, I don't think that this is actually something that a lot of people grew up necessarily wanting for better or
Yeah.
worse. Like I think that we were trained more to be into like this heavy passion in media.
And certainly in romance, like
Yes. Yeah.
OG, like the bodice rippers were
Yes.
there for a reason.
Yes, yes, you want like I think like so I've thought a lot about how Lisa Kleypas, she essentially sort
Mm,
of did a spin on Wuthering Heights in two different books at two different
yes.
points in her career. I think again The Magic and Seduce Me at Sunrise are
Yes.
two aspects. And in both of them, you get the idea that McKenna is so like alien sort of leaving him or
Hmm.
telling him to leave
Yeah.
ruined his life to the point where like it determined the entire course of it. Like he
Hmm.
lived for this idea that he would really like he was saying get her back negatively, but let's be real, he meant get her
Yeah.
back in every way.
Yeah.
And then Kev, yeah, Kev is like, I would rather die than be with you because like I would kill you, which is
Yeah.
insane. But you
But
love
I
this idea.
love it.
Yeah, you love it. You love this idea that they're so consumed with her that he'll just like the idea of somebody wanting you so badly that he wants you to come back as a ghost and ruin his life.
Like haunt me forever. And for those of you listeners, since we haven't sadly, I haven't done again the magic or Seduce Me at Sunrise. Again, the magic is the prequel to the Wallflowers, which we have done, and Seduce Me at Sunrise is part of the Hathaways, which is like a pseudo sequel to the Wallflowers. Like Cam is like the star of that. So if you read the spring book that I
Devil in
forget.
Winter is when he's introduced, and then in Spring, he was supposed to be the hero of Spring.
Yeah, and then it didn't work. So if you read Spring and were like, what the fuck? Why isn't Cam the hero? Read the Hathaways.
9 till midnight, and then his angsty brother Kev. Everything that Cam is like, so like, oh, I'm very debonair and like I have everything in control. Kev is like, I have a lot of feelings, and I
He has
don't know what to do with them.
so many feelings, but he has so much, like Heathcliff, he has so much trouble letting them out. Like I noted, there's like and it's the only time that like we really see him cry on
Mhm.
page is with Cathy.
Yeah.
Nellie's like, this man has spent his entire life suppressing his emotions. Like, I've never seen him express an emotion that's not anger or whatever. But he cries with Cathy. Like, that's the only place that he allows himself. And that is the essence of the dark romance hero, right? Like, he's horrible for everyone except for her. But then in Cathy and Heathcliff's case, like, he's also kind of horrible to her.
Yes, yes. They're so horrible to each other because I think that also what makes this because I struggle with dark romance, right? Like I some of my
Mm.
favorite books are dark romance. I love Anne Stewart, who is like an OG and honestly takes it a little bit further than a lot of people do today.
Yeah.
Um, like it's not the dark content that I struggle with. It's the idea that like there's a very bad and like a lot of them in this case I think that we can exempt a lot of queer dark romance from this, but like
Yeah.
in het dark romance it's like a very dark man and a woman who is either actually going to reform him or she sort of gets consumed by him and it's like fine in the end,
Mm.
and that's all good. I'm not shaming anybody for liking that. For my taste, and I do think that Wuthering Heights is part of this, I'm like desperate for a woman who is just as bad, who wants to make him worse, who feeds, and I'm not like I don't need them to be good at the end. Like I'm okay with the
Yeah.
happy ending where they're both bad. That's fine.
I like mafia romance. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'll make her worse. Like I think Mafia Madman by Mila Finelli is one
mm-hmm.
of my favorite mafia romances because she's like he kidnaps this young woman. He's like, I've got this. She's so under my thumb and she ends up being an absolute holy terror. I
Yeah.
love that. Like I think that's where Kathy like that's what makes it so satisfying in some ways compared
Yeah.
to like a book where the heroine's nice. Like Kathy is just a horrible person. And I do think
Yeah.
it just makes them a better match. I'm good with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was like the when I screenshotted this thread of yours, this was when I was like, oh, I should just ask her to come on the podcast. So I'm gonna read it. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna read your words out loud to you, listener. But you were like, it's so classic that Emerald says she's into sadomasochistic vibes of Wuthering Heights. And hey, you can make arguments about the subtext of the novel, but focuses on Heathcliff doing freak shit to Cathy and Isabella, while in the book he spends half his dialogue about and toward Cathy being like, she is constantly torturing me and ripping my heart out, and she's definitely descending straight to hell. And we as we speak, and she's an absolute demon woman, but I love her so fucking much. Do it again, come back. And it's true. I think that is the great misunderstanding of Heathcliff in so often. And it obviously does have to do with the fact that like he's the man. And so like men are more likely to be interpreted as like the dominant, but like Heathcliff is the sub and Cathy is the dom.
Yes.
And I think the best dark romance acknowledges that, like, this is a man who is a dom in every other aspect of life except this relationship.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting, like, particularly with dark romance, as we're seeing it, how it's playing out in like books coming out more recently. Like, there is that sort of like white supremacy angle of dark romance. Like, there is like a very conservative group in dark romance. Like, I'm not disparaging dark romance across the board, but you have that, and then you also have the fact that Heathcliff in almost every single adaptation save like one is whitewashed, where Heathcliff in the book is, it's not ambiguous, folks.
No.
It's not ambiguous. He's described with the slur for the Roma people multiple times. He's described as sailors that historically came from like Africa and India that were going in Liverpool at the time. Nellie at one point is like, your dad could be a Chinese emperor.
Your mother could be an Indian queen. Yeah.
Yes. Like Heathcliff is unambiguous. Like, this is not just like, oh, he's Spanish and like English people call like anyone from like Italy, and he's unambiguously mixed race at the
Yes.
very least.
Yes.
But he's always, almost always, a white man in visual adaptations.
Oh man, I've been rewatching the movies preceding this one. I rewatched the first one I ever saw was the Rafe Fiennes 1992, which was one of the
Mm-hmm.
only ones that tells the whole story. And I would just like to note that Rafe Fiennes is almost in brownface in that movie. Like it is intense.
Kind of did that in this movie too. Like when Heathcliff comes back, he's wearing copious amounts of fake tan. Like
Yes.
they really slathered it on him. And I was like, and I know he's just supposed to be like tan. Like Cathy makes an aside, like, look at him. Like he's obviously been traveling. But
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, like Emerald, like, did you really make that choice?
I'm like, listen, if you wanted him to look like he'd just been traveling, the Colin Bridgerton bronzer is right there. You can just do that. You know what I mean? It's fine. I now maybe do it a little bit better, but I think it is so I think that there is a deep so the weird thing is that I think that part of why because elephant in the room that a lot of people don't want to admit. I think that a lot of people do not want to admit that first of all, they don't want to admit that it's a love story, and I think that that is primarily because it's not even because they can't get into I mean, some people just can't get into this idea that a love story can be unhealthy and awful, but
Yeah.
also they don't like the idea that it's a love story because they think that that means it's intellectually inferior to what it is, which is
Right.
whatever. I mean, look at Jane Eyre. But I think that a lot of people struggle with the fact that Heathcliff is like an eroticized figure. And in the
Mm-hmm.
book, like you can definitely tell, like I think there are moments where like even Nellie's narrative is like, and somehow he looks better than ever. Like he looks great. You know what I mean? Like everybody else is suffering, and he looks awesome. So I think that I think that there's a lot of anxiety around the fact that this is a figure that like people have like let's be honest, part of their reaction to the book was like this is so subversive in a lot of ways. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that you can definitely see throughout history, like women responding to this character and to characters inspired by this character. And I just feel like people, this idea that Heathcliff is not white is not new. People knew it when the book came out. People, people
Hmm.
weren't idiots. And it's this, I think there's a lot of anxiety around the fact that like he is a man of color. He is eroticized in the text, of course, also fetishized, which is bad. But I do genuinely think there is also an interesting level of like he is desirable, and that is kind of
Hmm.
ahead of its time in some ways, at
Hmm.
least in Western literature. And I believe that there's just this kind of need to make him a little bit safer, a little bit less transgressive, a little bit less threatening to white society. Like I really think
Hmm.
that, and I'm not saying that the book does this all perfectly and, was written by an 1800s white lady, right? Like no matter how
Right.
progressive she was, that will always be a reality. Um, but I think that people want him to be in this box of whiteness because they are afraid of what it means to be both afraid of him and threatened by him and attracted to him because he is not just
Hmm.
like this angry figure. Like I don't care. Like I own it. I'm like I love Heathcliff. He's horrible and like he needs to suffer for his crimes. But also I love him and I'm glad he got to go off and be a ghost at the end. And and I think that like there is just this idea that like he's not just weirdly appealing because like he's not described as like traditionally handsome, and I don't know how much of that is like racism
No.
and how much of that is just him being like we don't know exactly what he looks like.
I think part of it is classism too. It's like the fact that he's lower class, so he's like rough and the like low brow or like whatever,
Yes, 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 all of that. And like I think but he's also like always so smart. Like if Heathcliff wasn't
Yeah.
so driven by revenge, he'd like probably own the world. We don't know how he got that money, but he didn't get it by inheriting it.
Heathcliff could
um
be Cam
yes,
100%. Like
100%. Yes, yes.
speaking of like Cam Rohan is Heathcliff if he like had therapy. I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Like it's the fact that like he does Heathcliff kind of the only reason why it doesn't work out for him is because the second generation outdoes him in some ways. But technically speaking, he does execute that vengeance plan of like forcing his son and Kathy Linton to get married. That does happen. It's just also that his son is kind of like a failboat and Kathy Linton is too much like her mother for him to actually control her.
Yes. And that's the thing. And then you also have Hareton,
Mhm.
who Heathcliff has a moment where he's like, fuck, like Hareton is both me and Kathy. Like, despite the fact that he's neither, like, because he's Hindley's son,
Mhm.
he's like, God damn. I think there is a moment at the end where Heathcliff has a real moment of like self-realization where he's like, I'm where he almost like recognizes like the generational abuse cycle that he's perpetuating. He's like, I think where he kind of like a little bit is like, oh, I'm Hindley in this situation, and Hareton is me, and Kathy Jr. is Kathy,
Yeah.
and that's when he kind of like the revenge collapses for him, and then he immediately dies. Because the
Mhm.
only thing that was driving him since Kathy died was like this revenge plot.
Which is so ironic because I get the vibe. I mean, I'm very certain that all he wanted since Kathy died was to kind of just fall over and die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was like on a long suicide train ever since she died. And it's like the only reason, like you could get what you want. You could be reunited with her. Ghosts exist in this world, clearly. But like you could go out and be on the moors with Kathy, but you're just like screwing yourself over by not dying, by just like being consumed by revenge and letting that keep you alive.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is interesting that Harriton is like, I love Harriton. And I think that is something that like I always, any adaptation that excludes Harriton, I'm like, stop. That's like my baby. That's everything that people want Heathcliff to be, Harriton becomes, you
And
know?
I did notice that. So, okay, my general review of the movie is like no ghosts, no gray fucking, and not a single tit was seen. And that I was like, what's the point of that in the first place? Similarly, like also like great gowns, beautiful gowns. But it gave, I realized there's this one scene in which Heathcliff is coming for Kathy Jr. and he's like gonna beat her up, and Hareton like comes up and he doesn't like throw Heathcliff aside, but he is like, stop. Like, and he was like, it was my fault. Like, it was me. Like, punish me. And in the
Hmm.
movie, they give that to Heathcliff, where he's like, where they have some sort of transgression that's Cathy's fault. And Heathcliff is like me. And then he gets whipped, and we get like 10 million eroticized, sweaty back scenes of Jacob Elordi, which was not him, actually. I found his like back double came up on my feed. He's like, nobody knows that I was the back double for Jacob Elordi.
Oh my God, unsung hero.
But so they gave Hareton's that moment with Hareton to Heathcliff. And like you're right, like he is, they really, in the bluntest and like most like aggressive term possible, I feel like Emerald Fennell neutered Heathcliff.
Yes. Yes.
Like he's not nearly fucked up. Like by conflating old Earnshaw and Hindley and making them the same character, you're now making it so that you're like, okay, but like, why does Heathcliff really want revenge? Like, what exactly does he want revenge for? By making them in their like 20s and 30s, you're like, why are these people acting like children when in the book they literally are children? And that's the whole point. And Cathy dies in childbirth because like that's the final transition to the womanhood, and she never wanted to be a woman. She like it's always talking about how she wishes she could be a little girl with Heathcliff again running on the moor, like
It's so bad. Like there's nothing. Somebody told me that it was they're like the reason why, because I was like, if you turn this to the Cathy and Heathcliff story, then like you're losing a lot of basically everything. And they were like, it's not even the Cathy and Heathcliff story. It's like the Cathy story. Yeah. Heathcliff is nothing like an object of desire.
they say when they're first introduced as children, and props to those child actors, I thought they were the best part of the
Oh,
movie.
they
They
were
were
great.
fucking great. Cathy's like, oh, he's gonna be my pet, and we're supposed to like interpret that as like, oh, that's like, she's like a silly child, like saying this, whatever, she's like a spoiled silly girl. But that is what the movie made Heathcliff. Like
Yes.
he
Yes.
really doesn't have agency outside of Cathy. Like it is the Cathy. It's a fan fiction. It's a self-insert fan fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I give a lot of I don't really love the Andrea Arnold version, although we have to give it so much credit for being the only one that I'm aware of that casts a man of color as Heathcliff.
Mm-hmm.
And James Housen was really good, or was as good as the script could give him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care for that movie, but one interesting thing it does is that it makes so much of it from Heathcliff's perspective, which to the extent, I think it's kind of the opposite problem. When you watch that one, it's very frustrating that Kathy has like no really strong
Mm.
character. And here I think you see the reverse, but it's purely to like, at least with her vision, she was trying to like sort of shed light on this idea of Heathcliff as a man of color and giving him the
Mm-hmm.
empowerment of having like the perspective. I'll give her that any day. But here, I just feel like it really was. You kind of saw two sides of Emerald Fennell, I think, projecting. You had everybody assumed and was correct about Margot Robbie being sort of like her avatar. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think a lot of it is about being attracted to Jacob Elordi, which like go with God, that's fine, but like don't
Like
make
me
me
too. Like I'm not gonna pretend like Jacob Elordi wasn't hot in the movie. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Sure. It's like it was that, and then also I think that in a way, and I think this was more forced. I think that she wanted this was where she was like, I'm gonna do like a something something intellectual. With Isabella with like the idea of like the doll of Kathy, obviously being like sort of a reference to Emerald as like the director, and then
mm-hmm.
it's sort of like, oh, she's so freaky, she's so weird, she's the weird girl representation. And I just didn't find either of those things to be a good excuse for completely because it's like Heathcliff became Isabella's sort of sexual outlet too after he was
Mm-hmm.
Kathy's. It was like he became Consent King Heathcliff. It's so weird. And she got
Yeah.
to figure out her kinks through him. He was
Yeah.
a kink dispenser while also being a terrible dom. But like that was
Yeah.
it's so dehumanizing. It almost lens, I completely disagree with the idea that like, well, it's good that she cast a white guy because I would hate to see a man of color like being portrayed like this. And I'm like, yeah, but that means that you simply don't make the movie. If you cannot portray a man of color sensitively, and if you can't figure out how to show that Heathcliff is more than just like, a fetishized taboo character, if you can't figure that out, don't make the movie. But I did find myself thinking like, I mean, I'm glad that it's Jacob Elordi here and not somebody like, my fan cast, Asid Zaman or Jacob Anderson, both of Interview with the Vampire, which is so good. Because I would hate to see them in this position, but
Yeah. Even the guy that played Edgar.
yes,
Like if you look at pictures, like they really
gorgeous.
horrible in the movie. They really did him dirty in the movie. In
Yes.
real life would have been a great Heathcliff.
Yes. I mean, there was one scene. I think his charisma is so great that there was a scene where he was like asleep at Kathy's bedside and I was like, that is a father. That is
Mm-hmm.
he is looking great, but like
Mm-hmm.
they went so out of their way to desexualize him
Mm-hmm.
to a degree that I think he became even more of a milk toast than the book Edgar. Like at least the book Edgar, I think the thing that I keep thinking about. I know I keep on just like all these things that I hate, but book Edgar is actually I have another romance thread to pick up on this, but Book Edgar would never hug Heathcliff and be like trying to say like I'm so sorry Heathcliff Cathy's especially if he believed that
No.
they slept together. No
Yeah.
way.
I honestly, Edgar was coming out, and part of me was like, what if they just kissed? What if
Like
Edgar and Heathcliff just kissed?
I feel like they had more chemistry than Jacob and Margot had. Like I think that Jacob Elordi had better chemistry with basically anybody in that movie than Margot Robbie. But that did, as I was speaking, I will make a little I'll make a little controversial but brave statement. The I think that what would be more interesting and transgressive if you really wanted to do a weird Wuthering Heights, and this would still get
Uh-huh.
torn up. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying do this, but I am saying if you wanted to change the names and do your own thing. There's something to be said about the fact that in the book Linton, as much as I do not like him, and I think that he represents a lot of things that the book is critiquing, he is not ever treated as somebody who Kathy does not love at all. She literally says she loves him. She's just like, it's
Mm-hmm.
different. Heathcliff is like, yeah, she just doesn't love him as much as she loves me, obviously. Nellie, it's so interesting and I think significant that in the scene where like Nellie finds the lot that Heathcliff sort of like replaced Edgar's hair with like his in the
Yeah,
locket.
I love
She sort
that.
of twines them together, and at the end, it's like
Yeah.
their three graves are together. So I am saying, if you want to write a throuple romance that sort of is about them, that is something that you might want to consider. And early, almost the ghost of MMF is is in Wuthering Heights. I'm saying it now.
I would love like a swords crossing too. Like,
They hate each other so much they
can
love
like
each.
Chuck Tingle like pounded in the butt by Edgar Linton's ghost?
I mean, listen, like, why not? I'm sure that he's. I think that there are like interpretations that are just kind of
I'm
like
sure.
he's probably out there. Well, yeah, I think there is a book. I'll have to find it, but there was a book where an author I read recently where an author's claim to fame was that she wrote a YA series based on Wuthering Heights that resolved itself in a throuple situation. But I think Heathcliff died, and that's where she lost me.
Oh,
Yeah, of all people, you don't kill off Heathcliff in that trio.
no.
But yeah, I think that it's bizarre to me that she made one of the strongest anti-heroes that's ever existed into such a pathetic puppy and not in the masochistic manner, but in the I am just sad and like pathetic sort of way, you know?
Yeah. And that was, I think that was the thing coming out of the movie because like the movie self-contained.
Hmm.
I was like, this was fine. I was entertained most of the time. I could see like this would have gone hard on Tumblr in like 2014. Like, and I think it did itself a disservice by calling itself a Wuthering Heights adaptation. Because, so like thinking back, and because I've reread the book so recently, on the surface, in terms of like events, it's very faithful to the book. But that's only on the surface. Like she took like the epidermis layer of Wuthering Heights and threw away everything else. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, you see reviews being like, oh, this is like smooth brained Wuthering Heights. Like, this is like, like just have fun. Like, and Emerald Fennell herself is like, well, you can't adapt like Wuthering Heights. It's like too dense. And like to an extent, I agree. Like, you can't adapt Wuthering Heights in a movie, like with, you can't fit everything into a movie. It's just too much. But I think when you call it Wuthering Heights, you invite comparison and you invite criticism based on that comparison. I think it would have done a lot better if it was just like a standalone gothic love story. And I think she just really wanted the marketing benefit and the publicity benefit and the rage baiting of using that IP, when like if you had just tragic gothic notebook, pitch it
Yeah.
as that, and I think it would have done a lot better. But yeah, she wanted the IP without having the skills or wanting to do the work of like actually engaging
Hmm.
with that IP.
Yeah. And you know who didn't do that? Lisa Kleypas. They romance authors have been taking different spins on this story
Right.
for forever. So many heroes are inspired by Heathcliff. I think I would argue that there's like three dudes who sort of immediately come to mind to me as like inspiring historical romance heroes. And obviously it's Darcy, Heathcliff, and I think like Mr. Rochester is like for your sort of like middle of the road,
Yeah.
not in any bad way. Like he's sort of the middle ground. But
No, I agree.
Lisa Kleypas very clearly, I would be shocked if she wasn't inspired by Wuthering Heights, just certainly
Mm-hmm.
with Seduce Me at Sunrise, and most likely with Again the Magic. But she didn't
Mm-hmm.
say, here's Wuthering Heights romance novel edition. She just did her own thing,
Right.
and it did great. I think that especially Again the Magic is seen as like these days like a
It's
classic
a
of historical romances.
Yeah, it's so good. Listener, please read it. Yeah, and I think that I've seen people bring up things, adaptations like Clueless, which is an adaptation of Emma by Jane Austen, and 10 Things I Hate About You, which is an adaptation of Taming of the Shrew by Shakespeare, both classic literature with controversial main characters. Similarly to Wuthering Heights, like you either love them or you hate them.
Mhm.
But those movies work, and like they're very different, I think, than what Emerald Fennell was trying to do, but they work because they don't pretend to be an adaptation. They're like, listen, we're inspired by this. We took some of the themes. We're going to take some of the character names,
Mhm.
so as a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But now we're going to make our own thing. And we're going to have like this conversation with this text hundreds of years later
Yes.
without pretending like we're bringing the text to a modern audience. It's like this is a gateway for
Yeah.
you. And like now,
And my favorite retelling of Wuthering Heights, if you'd call it a retelling, have you read The Favorites by Lane Fargo?
no, it's been on my TBR. I wanted to. Yeah.
She does exactly what you're talking about, though, where it's like it is set in the world of competitive ice dancing, which I'm
Yes.
obsessed with anyways. But it's like he's Heath, she's Cat. There's a character whose last name is Gaskell, and she's so like greatly. It's all these little references. Elizabeth Gaskell was a friend of Charlotte Bronte's who.
Yes. No, I love North and South. Listener, if you want like a mini series, if like you need to take a break from like 1995 Pride and Prejudice, the North and South mini series, please.
It'll give you probably a lot of what you thought Wuthering Heights 2026 would give you in terms of like a brooding man and like a woman and like period piece drama. But so yeah, definitely do that. And the book's good too. But he's like yeah, The Favorites does exactly that. And like honestly, the second half of the book really veers off of like the Wuthering Heights sort of territory.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine because she never said this is Wuthering Heights, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This is The Favorites. It's its own thing. It's inspired by it, deals with some of the different themes. Her Heathcliff is not white, and that is something that matters in this sort of conservative ice dancing world. And like she touches on things like that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not Wuthering Heights, and so you can give her a pass and not hold her accountable for making those big changes.
Right. I'm It's like the 10 million and one Pride and Prejudice adaptations.
Hmm.
Most of them are not I mean, a lot of them are named some version of Pride and Prejudice, but
Yeah.
most of them are not. Like, but sometimes you like don't even realize that
Yeah.
like, that it's Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Like, there's these archetypes, and Wuthering Heathcliff and Cathy are one of them.
Mhm.
They're romance archetypes that have been passed down through the generations that countless authors and readers have been in conversation with, but they acknowledge that they're in conversation with it as opposed to they're trying to just like tell you it.
Yes. Yes. And she's done this before. That's what confuses me is like, I mean, I don't think she's ever honestly acknowledged that Saltburn is at minimum in conversation with the talented Mr.
It's
Ripley.
talented Mr. Ripley. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it is. And so it's just kind of like I know, and I listen, I don't like Saltburn, but like I will give it more respect because I'm like, at least you didn't try to say this is the talented Mr. Ripley, but what if like he, did a weird bathtub thing? You know what I mean? Like at least she didn't try to do that. So I don't fully understand what compelled her. And I guess like I think that my rage is compounded because I've always been like, man, I love Wuthering Heights so much. And I truly do believe that on screen it could be incredible in a miniseries. But it's never, no matter how many times it's been adapted, it's never hitting. And this is yet another moment where I'm like, cool. So there were like 15 years between the Andrea Arnold version and this one. And who knows when we'll see another one? Who knows when we'll see
Yeah.
somebody who will actually do everything that needs to be done. And I just don't know why I do think that part of it is like the marketing, like you said. I think that she really
Mhm.
likes the idea of the prestige of it. And I think she thinks it inherently comes off as more subversive because people who haven't read Wuthering Heights believe that because it's a classic of literature, it's like a fuddy-duddy novel. And she's like
Yeah.
sexing it up, you know?
It's
Which is,
honestly tamer. It's tamer than the book.
looks crazy.
I walked out of the theater and like there were a few times when I was like, like grab my friend who I saw it with, like I grabbed her leg and was like, oh, like what's going on? And but most of the time I was like, okay, all
Yeah.
right, this is what we're doing. Why are we doing this? Like, yeah,
I think the hottest, like if you could say, because I think I was just so, I can't say that I was like fully able to like get absorbed in it, but the hottest moment in the movie, in my opinion, and again, this is kind of ruined by the fact that like she made Joseph into BDSM. I'm like the guy who was first of all just a horrible person, but also like clearly the grossest character on the page.
like an old like white
Like,
Christian nationalist, basically.
yes, so gross. Like, and this he's like in his 20s and he like puts a bridle on, which I also was kind of like, I I find that the fact that she was like BDSM is puppy play and putting like a bridle on somebody, I was like, that felt very like what people would think would be shocking. But it
Mhm.
wasn't that, but it was the moment where like Heathcliff puts his hand in his mouth, not his mouth, his hand and his one hand over her Kathy's eyes, one hand over her mouth to keep her from seeing and also saying anything. I felt like, and especially the fact that he was like on top of her, and you could definitely infer that like part of what freaked her out was I'm sure he was like hard as a rock. But like
Yeah.
like I think that that was the one moment where I was like, oh, that's kind of hot. And I think that it was also probably the closest to like what would happen in a romance novel. You know?
Yes.
Like that's what
Yeah.
it felt. I was like, that's Elizabeth Hoyt right there. You
Yeah.
know?
And Kathy tries to bring that back. Like if there's a part where there's like a sex scene with Edgar and she's like puts his hands over her face and like she's trying to like live in that moment or whatever.
Yeah. But it's tainted by the Joseph thing. That's the thing. I'm like, this would have been so good if it wasn't Joe. Why did it have to be Joseph?
I think she saw him in like because it's the guy that plays Aemon Targaryen. I don't know if you watch House of the
Yeah,
Dragon,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
it's the
yeah.
guy that plays Aemon Targaryen, which for those of you that don't watch House of the Dragon, he's the long-haired Targaryen with a big ass dragon. Like that's what and he wants to fuck his sister, which is appropriate for Wuthering Heights. Um but I think she like saw him and was like, I want him in my movie, but I've already cast Heathcliff, so
Would have been wild if she'd cast him as Heathcliff.
yeah.
That would have been an adventure of its own.
I think he could have been a good Hindley.
Oh, he could have been that's so dead on. Oh my God, you're so right. He would have been a great Henley. And like I say this as somebody who, Henley's so I think Henley is the real villain of Wuthering Heights of society. But like Henley is probably like when people say Heathcliff's the most evil character in Wuthering Heights, I'm like, you guys,
No.
at least Heathcliff was reacting to something, and not that Henley wasn't, abused by his father. Not that Henley didn't have a sob story, but Henley targeted this kid just
Mm-hmm.
from day one. Nothing that is Heathcliff exists without Henley sort of
Mm-hmm.
starting that. But because I don't know, you just kind of it felt I was really just kind of I thought that it was such a letdown that it was just the dad. Like it felt so stereotypical. And it was yet again something in service of making everything about Cathy and Heathcliff protecting Cathy. Nothing's about Heathcliff because the abuse from Hindley is really something that's so central to him, and it's not something
Yeah,
that he really is like absorbing. You know what I mean? Like in she's not in danger, you know what I mean? So it's just kind
right.
of it was that's why Hindley's not there. It's
Yeah,
not about Cathy, and so therefore Emerald doesn't
yeah,
want.
yeah.
Which makes me sound like a Cathy hater. I love Cathy, but just like
No,
Cathy exists, Cathy is Heathcliff, right? Heathcliff is Cathy. They need to be on equal,
right.
you know?
Right, exactly. Like that's in some ways like the thesis of the novel is that like these two people are they're not even two sides of the same coin. Like they're the same side of a
Yeah.
coin and like the other side is society. I don't know, you know.
100%. And like I just it's so sad to me in a way that like somebody who wanted to like delve into the romance. And this is another thing where we can compare it to romance novels. And I think sort of it's weirdly reflective of I think an issue that I think we face with a lot of romance today where so much of it, and it makes me sound, I don't want to sound like, you know, a bad feminist, but when you focus so much on the heroine in a heterosexual romance and you don't have the
Mm,
hero fleshed out at all, then there is really like the conflict is lower. I don't feel like he loves her because I don't know him. He's just like a flat object of fantasy to project on. And I think that there is an element of that to this movie where it's just like I don't feel the romance because I don't he
mhm.
has nothing besides being hot and sort of sad and there for Cathy to get her rocks off with, and not even in an especially creative way. And then the limp attempt to make him more villainous with Isabella is still not that intense because she wants it, you know?
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Isabella. Now that you've brought Isabella,
Yes.
let's talk about Isabella. Isabella book versus movie. Isabella, interestingly enough, is like I think Kathy and Isabella are like the two, particularly in historical romance, like
Mhm.
two the two heroine
Yeah.
archetypes.
Mhm.
Like you have like the headstrong, spunky Catherine and like the weird little nerd girl, Isabella.
Mhm.
And in the book, Isabella has in some ways like a romance heroine arc. I feel like in that she escapes her abuser,
Mhm.
lives for like 15 years by, you know what I mean? Like has a full life by herself independently. And in the movie, she's a dog.
She's a dog.
She's a dog.
She's and she's not even like a real Linton because she's like a ward. You know what I mean? Like they take her away from like so much. And I think that there is, you're right. She has like this heroine arc. And she also had the beginning of what she thought was like a sort of classic, I think almost what people stereotype romance to be, where it's like
Hmm.
she's gonna change him, she's gonna fix him. She thought that's what was going on there. But she's such a strong character that I think that only honestly like that's something she gets so overshadowed that
Hmm.
like I think only more recently have people been saying like she's actually like the one person who really like before the kids breaks the cycle and like yes she doesn't live to be you know over 35 but like if that but she still lives a happy life and or at least what we can assume is better until she like dies definitely better than living with Heathcliff and it's weird because the movie version doesn't even really have much of an ending. I don't even know, like, in the end, they sort of cut to Nellie, like, having her hauled off. I checked the Wikipedia article because I was like, what did they say? And they're like, Nellie rescues Isabella. And I'm like, was she? Because I just saw her sort of hauling Isabella off and Isabella's fighting. And I'm like, I don't think that Isabella's had any sort of realization that any of this is bad. I think that if
Yeah.
anything, you're kind of making her sadder because she seemed to be happier with whatever messed up thing she had with Heathcliff.
Hmm.
It's also very kink negative, which I find problematic. So,
Yeah.
and that's just like one of the lesser ones.
Well, one of the reasons that I think they made, actually, I think the only reason that they made Isabella Edgar's ward in the movie is because she cast a brown man as Edgar. and she wanted to cast, she's worked with that actress before, and no hate to that actress that plays Isabella. She was great,
Yeah, she was great.
but it's because she's white.
Yeah.
And so she was cast as Isabella, and so she can't be his sister because you can do race blind casting, but you can't do race blind casting
Yes.
according to that.
It's a very it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's never any explanation. One of my friends, when I left the movie, was like, so does she have an explanation? Like, does she touch on race? Like, if Edgar is Isabella's, if she's his ward instead of his sister, is that something that she mentions? And I was like, not at all. No, not with him, not with Nellie. And like, I wouldn't even have a problem with that if it wasn't for the fact that like they're then put in these incredibly weird roles. And I also, of course, I would have no problem with Edgar Linton being a man of color, except for the fact that Edgar Linton in the book represents white supremacy. And Heathcliff
Hmm.
in this movie is white. So you just flip them and it seems incredibly wrong. It makes everything worse. But to go back to Isabella, it just felt like she became something that existed to show you how freaky Heathcliff is. And isn't that
Hmm.
hot? Isn't it sexy? Isn't it transgressive? But I also found that like they made something grotesque out of Isabella's sexuality. Like there's really nothing wrong if you're into puppy play. Like, go with God, that's good. But like they made it into something where like you could see Nellie was just like disgusted when she saw her
Yeah.
there. You know?
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
depicted as so degraded. So it's like you want the hot and sexy Jacob Elordi moment, but then you're going to say, but not like that.
Right. Right.
Like it's so weird.
And Nellie is like arguably like, I mean, she's like technically the main character of the book because like she's telling 90% of the story.
Yes.
Um, and I do think that is interesting, like from an adaptation perspective, because I do think it does allow adapters more license in like interpreting characters because like who knows whether like Nellie's probably not a very reliable narrator. Most of this half the stuff she's doing is like secondhand that like someone else is telling her and then she's telling Lockwood. And it happened 20 years ago and like also, like there's all these like elements that like you can be like, well, I'm not gonna like take Nellie's word as God.
Mhm.
In the movie, they really like demonstrably change Nellie's character. She's
Mhm.
no longer a servant. She's now like the bastard daughter of a lord who's like
Mhm.
Cathy's companion. She's also the only woman of color. She's like one of two people of color in this whole movie. And I did notice, I don't, and we haven't touched so much on like the production side of the movie, but like the costumes were obviously have been a big talking point. That Nellie's costume, so the I did not go in expecting historical accuracy. Whatever. I'm not like big on historical accuracy. I was annoyed that yet again we had a corset scene, but I mean that felt very much okay. I'm getting off topic.
Right.
Rein it back in. Um, the costumes weren't historically accurate, except for Nellie's.
Mhm.
At least in terms of like if we're assuming this is happening in the 1840s, which again we don't really have like a time. I think technically in the book it's supposed to be like the 1750s or something. But Nellie was fully like, especially adult Nellie, BBC Queen Victoria period drama.
Yeah.
With her costumes, with her hair, like everything was like it was like super historically accurate. And from a visual storytelling perspective, I think that's interesting in terms of like when you're talking about like Victorian prudishness and like how Nellie is serving to judge the story. And in the book, like Nellie is like kind of judgy. She's like, why are you guys so fucking such fucking freaks? Like, chill out. But in the movie, Nellie, I don't know if you got the subtext too. To me, it felt like we were supposed to believe that she was like sapphic
Oh
and
yeah.
she was in love with Cathy. And that was part of her motivations for like keeping Cathy and Heathcliff apart.
100%. Yeah, there's like it reminded me a lot of it's been forever since I've seen or read Rebecca, Mrs. Danvers, I want to say.
Yeah, the housekeeper.
The
Yeah.
housekeeper is like very much portrayed, especially in the movie, as like being sapphic obsessed with the late Rebecca. and then
Yeah.
sort of projecting some of that into like a threatening sapphic presence towards the heroine. It felt very similar to me to that. And I think that it becomes even more so that when you again make it a Cathy show, but also take away Nellie barely interacts with Heathcliff in the movie.
Hmm.
Um, when really one of the only reasons why Nellie has so much to dish on in the book is because for whatever reason, because they're horrible to each other, and Nellie is like actively abusive to child Heathcliff, and Heathcliff is like again Heathcliff. So for whatever reason, he spills a lot of stuff to Nellie.
Because they grew up, I mean, they're childhood companions, and he's not, nobody's as bad as Hindley.
Yes.
So, Nellie is a confidant in
Yeah, and
some
Nellie is
ways.
sort of drawn into it against her will, but she also never really walks away from him fully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She doesn't like when Heathcliff is like, God, like I need to see Cathy at this last minute, and Cathy needs Heathcliff. Nellie's objecting, but she ultimately is sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, and so she has a weird bond with Heathcliff, and she feels sort of bad and is at least like, well, maybe now they're at peace at the end. But in the movie, there's none of that. So it makes her focus on Cathy even more like present. And it makes me even more grossed out by the fact that both of the people of color in this movie are obsessed with Cathy. Like everybody's obsessed with Cathy, but I'm like, could you have given Nellie a break? Like Edgar's married
Hmm.
to her, right? And like he loves her a lot in the book. She made Isabella needlessly super fixated on Cathy. And obviously Heathcliff, that's as it should be.
Yeah.
But Nellie, like it just becomes and the queer subtext makes it so much worse because I'm like, great. Now you're pulling sapphics into it. Awesome.
Right. And I mean, because Nellie is the villain, and that's not me saying, like, there have been notable reviews. I
Yes.
forget like which major publication was like they changed, like Emerald Fennell changed the villain of Wuthering Heights or whatever. But the villain is unambiguously Nellie. The
Yes.
villain, like, if we're looking at this, and I would like to talk about like what we thought, like, think like the inspirations for Emerald Fennell was, like, apart from theoretically Wuthering Heights,
Yeah.
because she definitely borrowed a lot from like other classic movies. But The Notebook, I think, was one of them. And Nellie was essentially like Allie's mom in The
Yes.
Notebook,
Yes.
like almost explicitly.
So much so. It's
And
crazy.
but when you make it, it becomes more insidious even then, because at least Allie's mom is like a mom acting from like some sort of misguided sense of like protecting her daughter. But Nellie is like, no, I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'm the evil gay jealous side character who's also the only woman of color.
Yes. And I've seen people argue, well, isn't it understandable that she wants Cathy to marry well to like take care of both of them? And I'm like, but Cathy was going to do that anyway. Cathy goes to her saying, just like in the book, hey, I got to do this. This is what's going to happen. And she's basically just spilling. And there's no real need for Nellie to set up the situation where Heathcliff runs away. Like, I mean, I guess it's like she's turbo locking that in. But at the end of the day, that's completely nonsensical because she's telling you right now that that's what she's going to do. So why do you need
Right.
him to, why do you need to set this up? And like, why do you need, even like, to be honest, like, there's no real, I mean, what did she think Cathy was going to do? Run away with Heathcliff after their little affair started? She's married to Edgar. She can't get a divorce. She's pregnant with Edgar's baby, which means, again, Super isn't getting a divorce. So it's kind of like, are you really going to tell me that, like, Nellie is that? I mean, maybe Emerald would make that argument, but, like, it doesn't really hold up because I'm like, Nellie's not, Cathy's not going anywhere. Nellie's not going anywhere. I mean, I guess Cathy, like, fired her or whatever, but, like, I just think that so much of it was clearly just about her obsession with Cathy and this jealousy.
Hmm.
And it is really messed up. And you like it is completely like it is absolutely like the mom in the notebook, but like you said, the mom in the notebook is still a mom. So it's
Hmm.
understandable, you know?
Right. And the change also in terms of like where you see Nellie and Kathy, I think in the movie is trying to present them as sort of like two ends of the spectrum. Like where Cathy is legitimate. Like they're sort of similar social standing, like landed gentry, but Nellie's a bastard and Cathy's legitimate. And so like I think the movie tries to set up that like part of the jealousy, like it's both sapphic yearning and also like I could be like I should be her, but like I couldn't, which is interesting in terms of like how that kind of borrows from like what Heathcliff's storyline is supposed to be. Like Heathcliff's storyline is supposed to be, I mean, like I don't know how you feel about the Heathcliff and Cathy are actually half siblings.
I'm a believer.
But like that, I mean, that's the like the Hindley Heathcliff thing. Like Hindley is the legitimate son, and Heathcliff is the illegitimate son, and like you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
so like the movie I think tries to like set up that sort of class discussion. But once again, and I haven't seen Saltburn, I haven't seen Promising Young Woman, but I've watched enough video essays of them that I feel like I can discuss.
Yeah.
It seems that Emerald Fennell really enjoys making a movie about how poor people are insidiously trying to ruin the lives of rich people.
Hmm.
And once again, that happens
Hmm.
with Nellie.
And it's kind of funny that like she didn't go all the way with Heathcliff in that sense.
Because he is
Yeah, yeah.
explicitly a poor person trying to ruin the lives of rich people.
That's his whole thing. That's literally what he does. And Nell, in this case, Nellie is Heathcliff, I guess, more than Kathy. But I think that like I think that Emerald just so Emerald Fennell, if people aren't aware, is from generational wealth. She is super posh. I believe that her dad is he went to, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, probably not Eton, which is like the same school that like the
Yeah.
royals go to. Like
She went to the same school as Kate Middleton.
yes, she had like a birthday party actually when she was like 18 or something that was romance themed and they all drank like pink champagne. It was all very and it was profiled in like a high-end magazine.
Yeah.
So that's who she is. And I believe that there's a deep anxiety that she has about working class people. And
Yeah.
I think that Nellie, because Nellie is a morally gray person in the book. Like more Nellie is, I struggle with
I mean,
Nellie.
everyone is.
Yes.
There's not a single like unambiguously good person in the book. But you know what? Besides the dog, but Isabella's dog, Isabella's puppy, and Kathy Jr.'s pony, those are the only unambiguously good characters.
Yeah, yeah, honestly, like even Kathy Linton is such a brat. And it is really mean to Harrington at first, and Harrington is like a horrible child.
Yeah.
Like nobody's great, but like Nellie, at least in the book, she feels human. She doesn't just feel evil. And I'm not saying that Nellie in the movie was like this wholly evil character who had like no nuance, no depth. But she
Mhm.
is just unambiguously anybody who tries to tell you that Nellie is not Emerald's villain in this movie is
Yeah.
lying to you. Or
Yeah.
they're seeing what they want to see. The moment that seals it is when Kathy says the baby's gone and Nellie's like, okay, bullshitter. And Kathy gets this is so dumb. Like for
She has
people who
fucking
don't know,
sepsis.
yeah, she gets sepsis. Kathy has this baby in the book. This is Kathy Linton. She is the second generation. Kathy Linton, Kathy Heathcliff. But
Yeah, that's why I just call her Kathy Jr. There's the problem with Wuthering Heights. The main problem is that there are three names and that's it.
yes, 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 absolutely. There are three names, that's it. And like several of them begin with H. But like there's just no way you can tell me that we're not supposed to interpret Nellie as the villain when she
Mhm.
gets like she lets Kathy go septic. Linton is like, get out of here, Nellie. It's your fault. And then Kathy gets to have like a dying moment where she graciously forgives Nellie. And I'm like, I wanted to vomit in that moment. I was
And
like,
Nellie's like, I did it on purpose.
yes, yes. And I'm like, what? What? That was also the moment where I was like, oh, they're gonna lose a lot of the casuals with this. Like the entire death scene was so like a lot of the movie was like a little bit, faux artsy, but the death scene with like the rivers of blood coming out of Kathy, I was like, this is gonna lose a lot of the Valentine's Day crowd right here. But good
Even
thing you
my even my friend who I saw with, and she was like one of my two friends who like loves Wuthering Heights. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll give it another chance. We saw it together. And she was like, the ending was such a letdown. She was like, what was the end? She was like, nothing, like there was no catharsis. And I think Emerald Fennell is like on record being like, oh, I want people to feel emotional. I want people to like cry, whatever. And that was the thing about the movie where I was like, I feel nothing. I don't even feel rage, you know?
Yes. Yes, it was so anticlimactic to end on Heathcliff because I think, if you want to end on Kathy dying,
Which most adaptations do, like we've said, you know what I mean? That's not a unique decision to this
yeah, it's
movie.
not a unique decision. It's the normal decision. But they could have ended with him, especially since Nellie was so central to the movie. Could have ended with the big tree scene. You could have ended with, I think the 1939 version with Laurence Olivier ends with Kathy's death, but then you get a flash forward to when Heathcliff dies, and it's like they run out on the moors together. It's been
Mm.
a while, but like that, I can see there's a way you could do that, especially in this one that is so focused on that relationship. Or I think even like, damn, if you're so uncommitted to the story, have Heathcliff jump out the window after that. You know what I mean? Like just like whatever,
Right.
like do the ghosts, but she didn't like the ghosts, obviously.
Right. There's no second generation to torture, so like why is Heathcliff still alive? Like his character arc in the book is once his revenge plot is over, he dies.
You literally just like it's borderline funny. I remember being 13 and being like, damn, that's how he goes out. I wasn't disappointed, but I was just like, oh, he just fell over.
He just dies. He just like stops eating for like 4 days and then they just like find him dead.
Everybody in Wuthering Heights dies from not eating.
Even in the book, though, when we're talking about Nellie and Heathcliff's relationship, like even then, Nellie's like, Heathcliff, you gotta eat. Like, Heathcliff, you're gonna get sick. Like, Heathcliff, you know what I mean? Like, she's still trying to like save his life.
So funny. I'm like, Nelly, you keep on being like, this is an infernal demon from hell. But then she's like, have some porridge. Come on, buck up.
She's like, I have one job. I'm the housekeeper here, and I will keep this house.
She's like, I am keeping the worst people in the world alive, and I am down to one. So like, I need to do this. Like the other two people, they're gonna fire me. They don't need me. I'm like, I think Kathy Linton and Harrington can probably run the thing by themselves at this point. They're like 18. But yeah, I don't understand the ending. I found that very because like I think she compared it. She wanted people to cry buckets like right like Titanic. But Titanic has a very closed like if you want it to feel like Titanic, simply do the end of Titanic where it's like
Yeah.
oh here they are off in like the end. Have Heathcliff ambiguously die in his sleep as an old man and then like go off onto the into the moors with Kathy waiting.
And make them children again. You know what I mean? Like, because you love the child actors, and we got the flashbacks to the children at the end
Mhm.
in that scene. Keep it going. Show just like the Heathcliff headstone, and then show the children running off into the moors.
Yes, that's all you needed. Like that's it would have taken like 5 extra minutes of the movie. Like I get that it's like
Yeah.
a longish movie, but it would have taken 5 extra minutes and it would have felt so much more tied up. I think that again, it's so bizarre that she's talking about catharsis. The
Yeah.
catharsis for that relationship, which is still not enough for him, is when they meet right before she dies. Like that is
Yeah.
the cathartic moment when Kathy is alive, is like them finally admitting like, I love you so much and it's too late. Like, and also screw you for leaving me. I'm going to make this all your fault mutually. So,
Yeah.
it's just so weird. I don't
Yeah.
understand I don't know who this movie was for, and I don't understand
Yeah.
what she was doing with it. It's not even like romance novel Wuthering Heights, really, you know?
No. Romance novel Wuthering Heights is this. I like was thinking of this of the I don't know if you read Lorraine Heath's The Hellions of Havisham
Oh yeah.
series. The
Oh yeah,
second
love
book of
it.
that of which is the infamous Gorilla Twins book, listener. But but book like 3.5, which is kind of like a prequel and a sequel, is about like the previous generation. Like throughout that series, it's about like three aristocratic boys being raised by this like widow or marquis. And so the three book 3.5 in that series is his love story. And like his wife dies, and then the ending of that is like he dies and their ghosts walk off into the sunset together. So like it's not a romance because they are dead, but like that's what you could do if you want to make it a tragic love story and if you want to focus on the love story, which this movie clearly did because it marketed itself as the greatest love story ever told, then give us a love story.
Yeah, in that novella, like, spoiler alert for people, he like even dies like on her grave. I believe that's where they found him.
He like goes out in the middle. He's like, she's like, it's time to come home, like, because her ghost has been haunting him the whole time. Like that, it really is like, if you want a romance, a just romance, Wuthering Heights, like that's another one. Lorraine Heath's When the Marquis Falls.
And I would also highly recommend The Viscount and the Vixen, which is it's book three, so preceding this novella, even though the novella is kind of like a prequel. It's about his son. I'm just shouting it out
Yes.
because one of the things that keeps on cock blocking the main characters in that book, like I will always love it, is like they're about to have sex at one point and then like he hears something and he's like looking out the window and he's like, "Oh my God, my dad's running out to go like see my mom's ghost again. I have to stop. I'm sorry. I gotta like it's so cold. I have to go get my crazy dad. It's so good." So yeah, like I think that's you're right. That is exactly what Lorraine Heath would I would trust Lorraine Heath with pretty much my life, but I would trust Lorraine Heath to script a Wuthering Heights that is like a love story. Like without having ever seen Lorraine, or I don't know if she's ever tried to screenwrite anything. I'm confident that she could find her way through this. Like because
Absolutely.
there is a gothic, like there's a gothic element to a lot of her books, and there's a gothic element to a lot of older historical romances, I would say.
Hmm.
Like they may not be straight up gothic, but they definitely, Anne Stewart, going back to that, a lot of her old historicals have that vibe. I would say that old Clapises have a little bit of that vibe.
Hmm.
Definitely Elizabeth Hoyt.
Even like Loretta Chase, like all, like Judith McNaught, like even I do feel like Wuthering Heights and to a lesser extent Jane Eyre had the most effect on early
Hmm.
modern romance novels. I think the Georgette Heyer was like trying to have a conversation with Jane Austen. And I love my girl Jane. Please, I'm not disparaging Jane at all. I am disparaging Georgette Heyer, but that's a different pony.
Fair.
Um, but in terms of like the capital R romance genre as it is today, like I think Wuthering Heights, because of the emotional roller coaster it takes you on, like that is like it's like baked into the bricks.
I think that's probably why I liked it so much when I was 13. I cut my teeth on the first romance novel I ever read in my life. I was 11 years old. My mom handed it to me. Yeah, and it was a Joanna Lindsay called Angel. Nothing to do with the English background. It was a Western, but it was like that level of just like heavy emotion. They sort of hated each other, but they loved each other. Like
Fucked
they,
up. Yeah.
yeah, it was fucked up. It was a tame for a Lindsay, and still there was dubious consent. And so, like, I think, of course there was, but I agree with you. I think that, and I love Jane too, but I think that like you see more Jane influence when like historical start to become a little bit more lighthearted and frothy, like Julia Quinn, Tessa Dare. Maybe there's like a little more there.
Yeah.
I love Tessa Dare, so like that's a big compliment.
Yes.
Like I see a
Yeah.
little bit there, like the banter, especially.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you're right. I think that early, like I'm looking at like I have a pretty cover of Lord of Scoundrels looking at me right now. But yeah, I think that like when you look at Dane, right, there is some
Hmm.
level of Heathcliff in like ness to him because he's like,
Hmm.
everybody hates me. My dad was mean to me. There is some racialization of the fact that he's Italian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's one aspect of Lord of Scoundrels that is both problematic and also like it's not untrue that Dane would be treated differently if he was,
Right.
Italian mother back then. But it is you see that even in like a funny book like that. And also
Mhm.
Jessica Trent has a lot more in common with Kathy Earnshaw than she has with a lot of milk toasty heroines that we unfortunately
Mhm.
seem to see a lot of today. Because Kathy would shoot Heathcliff.
Absolutely. And you know what? Heathcliff would thank her.
Oh, Heathcliff would be like, wow, she really loves me. Like, this is amazing.
They'd be running in, being like, I have to get the bullet out of you. And he'd be like, no, sew it in.
Yes,
So
exactly. Oh my
there
God, you're right.
forever.
I was about to say, because Dane is similar in that he's like, well, I gotta marry her now. But you're right. The difference between Dane and Heathcliff is that Dane's like, well, obviously, I need to recover. And like that wasn't great. Heathcliff would be like, this is a bit of that's have you read Lothair by
Oh, I
okay.
love Lothair.
Yes, Lothair. I think that is it's one of my favorite books of all time. Lothair certainly owes a lot to Heathcliff.
Oh,
And
absolutely. She beheads him.
yes,
And he's like only mad about it for a little bit.
yes, there is like a in the movie Notting Hill, there's like a montage where Hugh Grant's walking around like for like 4 seasons and Ain't No
Oh,
Sunshine.
yeah.
Like that is Lothair, but after Ellie almost cuts his head out, like off, like he does that and he carves his heart out. That is Heathcliff behavior. If Heathcliff was, I will not lie, when I was 13, I also shortly after I read Wuthering Heights, I made a bit of a thesis in a youthful essay of sorts in which I compared Heathcliff to vampires to modern vampires. And listen, it's come full circle because 100% a Cressley Cole vampire is Heathcliff inspired. It's not just Loth, he's the hardest, but like I would also say Conrad Roth being like, what's a little of cutting off my hands for true
Oh
love? Like
my
I got you
God.
like was
Even
it
fucking the very first,
yeah.
what is it? What is it? What is it?
The
Lachlan?
Warlord Wants Forever. It's the prequel first is The Warlord Wants Forever, which is Nikolai Roth, but the first full
Yeah.
length is Lachlan McCreeve.
Yes, and like he's being tortured in the internal
Oh,
hellfire of
love it.
werewolf underground Paris, and he sniffs her, and he basically like cuts his limbs off to get to her.
And then he's really embarrassed because his leg is growing back when he sees her, and she's like, "Oh, he's kind of got a shrivelly leg," and he's like, "Stop! I'm sensitive about it." So good. Yeah, I think that every Cressley Cole heroine, almost every Cressley Cole heroine, with like maybe like Lucia's an exception, but a lot of them are like holy terrors. Like Ellie
Hmm.
is in like she is wild and she is manipulative and she is brash. And you could say that about so many Cressley Cole heroines. And if they don't
Hmm.
start that way, they become that way. That owes
Hmm.
itself to Kathy Earnshaw. Like that's that character type you were talking about, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and again, like I think that that creates that's why it's so good. That's why those books stand up, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that like we are devoid. I read so many good new releases every year. There's so many good ones. But
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like there's no good releases, but I think that some of what this is not what I think authors are pushing. I think it is a traditional publishing thing where we are sort of getting a lot of heroines who are messy on the most shallow level possible and heroes
Hmm.
who have absolutely nothing wrong with them that are going to save them. And is that going to be memorable the way that not only Wuthering Heights, which is
Right.
obviously a classic book in literature, but like Immortals After Dark, Lord of Scoundrels, Again the Magic, is that going to be memorable 20 years from now? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
even like contemporaries, like Susan Elizabeth Phillips, Kiss an Angel. Bat shit insane. Two people that treat each other like shit, but by the end, you're like, I want them together. And I think that that is the problem, is that I don't mind an asshole man, but I need his love interest, particularly if that love interest is a woman, to give as good as she gets. And then I also need him to like grovel and just be like beat down. But like that's a different.
Yeah.
But it's like we were talking about earlier, like how Heathcliff is a dom in every aspect except
Mhm.
his relationship with Cathy. And like to craft a memorable hero, that's what you have to do, but then you have to be willing to make him unlikable.
Yeah, you have to make him unlikable and you have to make him suffer. Like he's just gotta like
He's got to suffer.
yes, he's gotta do bad things. Like I I was actually recently rereading a Lorraine Heath. I think it was Passions of a Wicked Earl. And
Mm.
I'm one of my favorite Lorraines is Waking Up with the Duke, which I don't think is uncommon. But it I read that book and then I went backwards years ago, like 5 years ago, and I read the first two in the series and I was kind of like, oh, these are fine, but they're not as good as Waking Up with the Duke. And I was like, I'm gonna give them a reread recently. For so much of Passions of a Wicked Earl, even I, who loves an asshole hero, was like, God, this guy is so annoying, and I do not know how she is going to pull it off. This is
Yeah.
so, like, what a piece of shit. And the way that she pulls it off at the end is by making him do the thing that most humiliates him. And the
Hmm.
thing that he is like so against, that is like so a part of his pride for that entire novel,
Hmm.
when the moment comes when that is the only thing that will help her, immediately. Because
Yeah.
like he is so broken down by his love for her that
Yes.
he is completely shed. It's just like in Kiss an Angel where like he hits his knees, right? Like he kneels,
Yes.
that's like he shames himself. They all need to, even if they do not like do it in the most literal way possible. I think that all great romance heroes should have to experience that level of like disgracing themselves in a
Hmm.
sense, giving it
Yeah.
all up. Even the good ones, even the good ones, I think should have a moment where like they're giving everything up. I think that's kind of what when we go back to this idea of like what appeals so much about Heathcliff and like his madness, his obsession with Cathy. I think that you get that sense that like when he says, drive me mad, do anything, he is saying, consume me.
Yeah.
Like take over me, like ruin my life. Like
Yeah.
that is anything but leaving me without you. That
Yeah.
is that crux that I think people
Yeah.
want
And
deep
he has
down.
that line too, where he's like, you can torture me all you want. I invite you to torture me, but let me do a quid pro quo. Pro. Like let me return the favor.
Yes. He's not like, hey Kathy, don't hurt me. He's just like, could I just get like
Can I
could I
get
get
one
one?
shot in? Like every 20 slaps, could I just like get a shove in?
Yes, exactly. And it's like I think that that's like the and of course, listen, I feel like we're all adults here. We don't need to say this isn't healthy because we all know this is all fantasy. But it is that like idea of like I can be my worst possible self. And not only
Mhm.
there's something like I think that a lot of women and I think that this comes up against the idea, the conservatism that we've been heading towards, this tradwifism, which I do think that publishing is kind of like at points
Yeah.
falling into. It is uncomfortable with the idea that women like the concept of a man who not only accepts their bad parts, but is like,
Yeah.
damn, I'm into that. Like that is so it's like a wild like the idea of somebody who embraces your wildness, who embraces like and you obviously don't want somebody who wants you to abuse them, but you do. I
Yeah.
think that there is a level to which right now, when we go back to this idea of the surface level messy woman and the perfect guy, it's like
Yeah.
she has fixed to be with him, you know?
I've never seen it. I've never heard it phrased that way, but that makes so much sense. Yeah.
And that's condemning women to me in a lot of ways. It's saying that like we're kind of the problem and we need to fix
Yeah.
ourselves in order. And a lot of women, I think, say, well, that's very empowering. And I'm like, I guess if you're being practical, of course we have to fix ourselves. But like,
Yeah.
I think that it's putting the idea that you are the problem in your mind. And I think that a
Mhm.
lot of old school books actually say, hey, you're wild. And maybe like in some of them she gets tamed. I wouldn't say that Jessica Trent gets especially tamed.
No, I don't think it's like find someone who matches your freak.
Yes, yes. Ellie and Lothair is not, if anything,
Oh
she
my
kind of gets
God.
freakier.
He sends him the heart and flips him off.
Yes, yes. And at the end, he's still bad, but he's like, oh, I'll just murder fewer
But
people.
he goes like going back up, like he has to hit his lowest. He goes underground for her and rescues every member of her family,
Yeah,
even though that is his biggest fear and trauma.
yes. And what does she do in return? She forgives him, and she doesn't really do anything else. She lets him back in the house, essentially, and
Yeah.
feels good. You know,
And she
like
lets him hang out with her little cousins and they like go trick-or-treating.
he has to do more stuff. He has to agree to go to NASCAR, all these types of things. Like, and listen, I know that for some people they might be like, oh, like don't you want her to like have that doesn't mean she's not developed. She has still grown and changed, but she isn't doing all these things to be worthy of him.
Yeah.
It is the opposite. And I feel that there is something to which like a lot of more recent books feel like you are not worthy and you need to again be more perfect to be worthy of love. And something that harkens back to Wuthering Heights is like, regardless of whether or not you think Kathy should have love, it doesn't really matter. She does. People do love Kathy. And in fact, they like being tormented by her a little bit. And like that is
Hmm.
just, I think that there is something, I think within me at least, that even at 13 was like, God, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like she's wild and these two
Yeah.
men adore her. And whether or not that's healthy, I don't really care. All that I'm
Yeah.
focusing on is the idea that like she is a wild woman and nobody would, they don't want her to not be. Linton
Yeah.
does not actually. Linton, once she goes, because I think it's like she calms down a little bit during the marriage when Heathcliff's gone,
Hmm.
but then like when she's wild again, it's not like Linton forbids her from seeing Heathcliff, but he's still like, well, the doctor says that she should get everything she wants. That'll fix her, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah.
still spoiling her and indulging her. Everybody indulges
Yeah.
Cathy. Is that good for her? No, but is it kind of fun to see? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, if we look at romance as a whole
Hmm.
and Wuthering Heights as well, I think the genre as a whole is every romance book to an extent is in conversation with patriarchy because like patriarchy is the overarching system that
Hmm.
affects the society we live in, regardless of whether you're writing Ice Planet Barbarians or a mafia romance or a medieval or whatever, like patriarchy is affecting the people in your romance. Like even if you're writing a matriarchy story, like patriarchy is still there. And I had this discussion with Adrián Herrera where like that doesn't necessarily mean that every romance novel is inherently feminist. You know what I mean? Like to be feminist, it has to be a conscious choice that like you're writing a feminist work. But every romance novel is in conversation with patriarchy. And because of that, and part of that is because 90% of the genre is read and written by women.
Hmm.
Like, we would love more men to be in there, but if I'm like, I think that if it became more equal, we wouldn't have patriarchy anymore. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
and then you don't need romance to function the way it does, and it's interesting because I did walk out of Wuthering Heights, the movie, thinking like Emerald Fennell really took away all the other things besides patriarchy that
Hmm.
the novel is trying to like dissect. And the movie very much became like, look how patriarchy gets Cathy down
Yeah.
in a very shallow way.
Yeah.
And yet it didn't have the subversive, because it watered down Heathcliff, it did not have that like subversive critique of patriarchy that we see when we see these other, for lack of a better term, fucked up love stories.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Emerald struggles with like because patriarchy for her is like the thing, patriarchy affects every woman, but like rich, upper crust, I think especially in a system like England where we all know that class is so not that class isn't entrenched everywhere, but in the US we don't have like titles. You know what I mean? Like we
No,
don't have like
yeah. It is like the book Cast by, I'm completely blanking on the author's name, but it like talks about this, how like every country, every society has a caste system, and like in the UK it's class for the most part. In the US it's mostly race. Like there's different, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so but she is interacting with patriarchy on that level, being a part of and privileged by a system in which, at the top of the class system is literally like a family that will primarily, like, yes, they had a queen for a long time, but that's only because there wasn't a boy. It's just that's what Emerald's interacting with, right? And so she benefits so much from that. That I
Mhm.
don't think that I think that her shout, like, because Promising Young Woman, I know you mentioned you hadn't seen it. It is so, but it is so it angers me so much because I remember thinking, like, as much as I think that she presented the movie in the trailers as like, oh, she's hunting these men down because one man like assaulted and her friend killed herself. But
Mhm.
when you watch the trailer, you're like, she's taking these men out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you watch the movie and she doesn't take them out. She just drugs them and sort of like threatens them and then catches and releases them. And I think that that is the idea, the lack of understanding, because so
And
many
then
women,
she dies at the end,
yes,
right?
she
And
does
like
it.
the
Yeah,
cops save the day.
cops save the day, and that is the type of pay that tells you right there what Emerald's relationship with patriarchy is. The cops
Mhm.
are in the U.S. a symbol of the white patriarchy, right? Like they are. They're
Mhm.
enforcers of white
Yeah.
patriarchy.
I mean, even in the UK too, like they might not have guns the same way that we do, but they absolutely still have like a corrupt policing system.
Yes, they're enforcing law and order of the patriarchy. So like it's the fact that like that's how she sees things, I think kind of says everything, and it explains why she sees Wuthering Heights the way that she does. And it explains why she doesn't understand that when you cast Ed, not that I think her Linton was still fairly like he was very soft on Cathy overall, but like you could
Hmm.
tell she wanted to frame this as like Cathy's so suffocated by her adoring husband and he's
Yeah.
just a little bit too controlling. And she doesn't understand that when you cast a man of color
Yeah.
in that role, controlling his like literally Margot Robbie, no offense, is like the epitome of white womanness, like
Right.
visually, every bit of her. And she doesn't realize that it plays differently. That like
Hmm.
I don't view that in the same way. And I don't like the idea of this man of color representing this patriarchal system that is oppressing headstrong Margot Robbie.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very shallow.
Yeah.
It's so she thinks it tells you right there that she thinks that's any man. She thinks that all she could just say like all men are the same, and I'm like, no, different men have
Sh
different levels of privilege.
she lacks intersectionality, I think is like the
Exactly.
root of it. And but that made me like when you're bringing up the fact that her idea of patriarchy is this very like English aristocratic system
Mhm.
at the top of which is the royal family who are mostly men. And that also then, yes, that comes into play with the fact that that is also a mostly white institution. And it is an institution that not only upholds patriarchy, but upholds white supremacy. And we even saw that in the fact when they got a singular black woman and then drove her off.
Yes, that is where Emerald is coming from. That is her perspective. I will never not think about it, how in Saltburn, the movie that represents this degree of like, probably Emerald at her most explicitly, like, I am afraid of working class people. She cast in the role, which like, Salt, there's layers to it, but like he still ultimately represents like the threatening working class. She cast in that role an Irishman who was raised largely in the foster care system. The fact that she did that, and I'm not saying like, he didn't take the role willingly or whatever, and that's fine. Like I don't judge him, especially coming up in that system. I just think that it's like she knows. Well, I think on in theory she sort of knows. I refuse to believe that she's so ignorant, that she's never read these criticisms, that nobody's ever said like she is not
She went
that
to
dumb.
Oxford.
Yes, yes, she went to Oxford. She just
Like, you
so
cannot tell me you didn't take at least one comparative literature
yes,
class, like in
yes.
Oxford.
And like I so I'm like, you've heard all of this. You've heard of it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that you're stupid by any means.
And she's not that much older than me. So I know that, like, I'm just saying in terms of like
Yeah.
the life experience, in terms
Yes.
of the culture that we grew up with. Like, she's an
Yeah.
old millennial, I'm a young millennial. And so I'm like, I know that you don't exist in the world and you didn't come up in the world in your 20s and 30s without
Yes. She's 40.
getting at least a little bit of this, particularly working in the arts.
Yes. Yes. There's no way. And even if there was a way, it wouldn't excuse her. It would simply mean that she's like so tragically like it's just like it is just so galling because I do believe there's a conscious choice. I mean, we know she heard every bit of criticism about Wuthering Heights. There's a conscious choice in which she just sits there and goes, "Well, whatever. This is my art. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do." And I just don't think that I can ever excuse that. And I know that there's been a lot of like, well, you know, at least she's a female director essentially. And I'm kind of like, I don't care. There's plenty of others
Women can still uphold patriarchy and white supremacy. They can and do.
all the time, all the time. I mean, it's what you mentioned with romance. It doesn't mean her making work doesn't mean that it's a feminist act. And frankly,
Right. We're past that.
yes, just go see Hamnet. If you want to support a female director, go see Hamnet, support Chloe Zhao. She doesn't get a pass. And in fact, in a way, I am, as a woman, I'm a little bit more offended because it's kind of like I hate to say it, like I do sort of expect if this had been made by a dude, I would have been like, seems about right. When it's a woman, there is that extra level of like,
Yeah.
wow, you seriously have insulated yourself.
Right.
Like you have really not listened whatsoever. You have heard, you have not listened.
Yeah, and there is that sort of element of inequality of criticism, but it's because, like, yes, as a woman, you know, at least a little bit, even as an incredibly privileged white upper class British woman, you know at least a little bit what it's like to be marginalized.
Yes, on some level. Somebody just told you you're dumb because you're a girl. You
Right.
know?
You're blonde. Yeah, I
Yes.
grew up hearing dumb blonde jokes. I know you did. I'm sure you did too. Like,
It's truly somebody like I feel like every woman has been sexualized against her will at some point. I'm sure she has as a woman in the public eye.
yeah, like I'm sure you've been catcalled.
Yes, like that's I think that's the thing where it's like I believe that there are when you experience things like that, there are more doors open to automatic to like for you to explore empathy.
Hmm.
For you to because I think that whitewashing Heathcliff, for example, is a fundamental act that like lacks empathy. It
Hmm.
suggests an inability to understand how important his race is, how important it is for people to see him being abused as a person of color and understand what that means today. Because I think that a lot of people who read this book still do not fully seem to grasp. And I'm not saying you have to endorse what Heathcliff does. Everything he does is monstrous, but
The book doesn't endorse. The book's not like, yes, Heathcliff is entirely justified. The book is like, Heathcliff took it too far, but
Heathcliff
here's why. And
yes.
here's why, at least a little bit, you have to understand why he did it.
If you are incapable of understanding that, if you truly read that book, this is like, sorry, this is a different thing, but frustrates me so much. If you truly read that book and you say, the book is telling you that this man is evil from the start and shouldn't, that's actually problematic. And I don't understand like how anybody could think that this is a sensitive portrayal. You're not reading that book. I refuse to believe that you actually read that book because I don't understand. I think it is one of the most the discussions of his early childhood are so like in some ways ahead of their time and really acknowledge because back then people viewed child abuse differently, right? But like the
Right.
discussions of things like Heathcliff getting pinched and him just sort of being like and like staying a little bit quiet and like not wanting to like rock the boat. That is so like things like that are so I don't understand how you can read that and think like how'd he get there? He must be completely evil. Like I
The thesis of the book is that nobody is like inherently at their core evil. Like we're all made the way that we are because of the circumstances of our lives and the people that we interact with and the structures of the society that we live in.
yes, I think that Hindley is reacting to jealousy over his dad sort of who is abusive to him. His dad
Right.
sort of abandoning him. I think that Cathy really struggles. I think there's a lot to be said about Cathy not having a sense of identity and like not being a normal woman in this patriarchal society. And when she says I am Heathcliff, I think there's a level of like this is like something where I haven't read a lot academically about this, but like I feel like there's a level of which we would call what we would call a high level gender envy that you could read into that, where she wants to be Heathcliff because of her perception that he has freedoms that she doesn't have. And of course, Cathy has
Yes.
plenty of privilege that he doesn't have, but she's too selfish to realize that.
Yes. But she's also a child. Like she's a little girl. She's 13 years old and she dies at like 20.
Yes.
She never her brain never fully develops. You know what I mean? Like Kathy never gets the opportunity. And even when the world views her as an adult, like she wants to go back to girlhood because at least then she had a modicum of freedom and she had the freedom from these like expectations of femininity that are hammered into her. And that begins when her and Heathcliff are like looking at the Thrush I can't pronounce it. The Grange.
Yeah, that's
The
why they
Grange.
always call it the Grange. They're like, we don't want to say it out loud
I
either.
don't want to say, me too. They're at the Grange and and Kathy gets attacked by the Linton's dog and
Mhm.
it like bites her ankle. She doesn't just like fall and like pretend to sprain her ankle like in the movie. Like she gets brought to heel. She literally is brought to heel by a dog. She's hunted down and then caged in the house. And like that's the transformation to her like quote unquote womanhood. That's when she becomes like a refined lady. And instead you have 35-year-old Kathy like pretending to sprain her ankle in order to like seduce this silly rich man.
Yeah, and ultimately what it feels like to me in the movie is that like because Kathy is portrayed as so bratty, and like no offense to Margot, I have loved performances that Margot was given. Whatever was happening with this script, whatever was happening with this bratty Kathy, who she was, I think that I've seen some people be like, it's misogynistic to say that Margot was too old to play this role. Margot was too old to play this role. And it doesn't really matter if they age Kathy up. It's the personality. I
Yeah.
refuse to buy that this woman has never had a sexual thought in her life until suddenly Heathcliff like breaks
Yes.
there. Like, I don't buy that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like she's in her 30s. She's absolutely masturbated before.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. Like, and like she knows, like, I'm like, Kathy, just like go. You have like all these sheds and barns. Why are you at this rock? But like, that's another thing where I'm like, that is some 12-year-old girl nonsense. That is not a 35-year-old woman. But like,
Yeah.
that, I think that like all of these things, like her brattiness, it all makes her so difficult to like. And so it takes you away from this idea that like, and not that Kathy is likable in the book, but Kathy is a person in the book, whereas she's sort of like a caricature of a spoiled brat in the movie. And I think that all of this sort of takes you away from the idea, like she is so, because of that brattiness, so much of it feels like, and because like Linton is, a little weird, I guess, for the skin room, but like overall, really giving her like a really nice skin room. That was so weird. Also, they didn't do what I wanted with the skin room. I was like, I thought that Heathcliff was gonna like, I had this image to where Heathcliff was gonna be like alone in the skin room and he was gonna lick it. And like that would have been like a sign of his like desire. But instead he licks it when they're like hooking up, and that's less interesting. But no, I think that like it makes all of that just feels like Kathy, why aren't you just happy with this guy? Why aren't you just happy with Linton? Why it makes you feel that way? Whereas I think that I know that there are probably people who read the book that way, but for me, it really feels like Kathy cannot possibly be happy with Linton because she has denied nature. She has denied who she really is. Who she really is Heathcliff. Who she really is the moors, Wuthering Heights, the rocks. It doesn't feel that way in the movie. It feels just kind of like that feels Kathy in the movie. He's like, Heathcliff, I can't get down from this tree.
It's like 2 feet off the ground.
It's 2 feet off the ground. Kathy in the book is like running around all day, every day. She is like a
Yeah.
harridan.
Again, she literally has to be brought down by a dog in order to
Yes,
like take a bath and put on nice clothes.
yes. And like Kathy, how is movie Kathy really denying herself anything?
Right.
Like, whereas book Kathy is withering because she's denied her own nature in the past, which doomed her and Heathcliff and basically everybody else. She then literally denies herself nourishment with the food because she's doing
Hmm.
a hunger strike. Everybody in Wuthering Heights who needs to die just like starves to death. And and then she is also being denied, albeit in a fairly reasonable sense, by her husband,
Right.
her nature, which is again Heathcliff. Heathcliff is her nature. Heathcliff is nature. And it just the movie, I'm just like, damn girl, you seem just fine. You seem like you should probably be fine in this situation. Like,
Hmm.
I don't get the problem. The
Yeah.
movie, because the movie, and again, that's partially because the movie just, as you said, neuters Heathcliff. He doesn't matter. He could be anybody,
Yeah.
any hot guy.
It is interesting to me that the parts that I did enjoy about the movie were the parts that Emerald Fennell probably had the least to do with. So like the cinematography, the like color grading, beautiful. Love seeing color in movies again. I personally enjoyed the costumes. I thought for the most part they were ridiculous and fun,
Yeah,
and I was like, whatever, Pirate Cathy,
both of
fine.
them. Yeah, good, go for
Yeah.
it.
The set design, a little over the top in some things. Most part I was just like, insane,
Yeah,
whatever,
there's a
fine.
there's a world in which I would love Skin Room. Honestly,
Yeah.
there's a world I'm like, yeah, I see it. Sure.
Yeah. And like the score, for the most part, great. Although the fact that they've like TikTokified so much of the soundtrack did take me out of it a little bit. Like the movie starts with like the like I think I'm gonna die in this house song that I was just like, oh, I was like, did someone start like an edit? But for the most part, I like the soundtrack.
Yeah.
But those are all the parts that like involve other creative people having to take the hat. Like obviously Emerald Fennell was involved because she's the director.
100%, 100%. And like I think when I was even thinking about Skin Room again, it suddenly struck me as I was thinking about it. Skin Room is not an Edgar Linton thing. That is a Heathcliff thing. And if she understood, like the man who was like, I need her body exhumed right now, and like, like it is,
Twice.
yes, twice, twice, twice. I need to check in on it a couple of times. And also I need to like open up the side. People don't talk enough about the fact that he doesn't just like do that. Probably more concerningly, he opens up one side of her coffin and he's like, I'm gonna have one side of mine open. And so it's gonna be kind of like our coffins are connected. And then like 13-year-old me was like, that's so romantic. But like I think Skin Room, like after she dies, Heathcliff would 100% do Skin Room. And then he would put Lockwood in it, and Lockwood, would be like, I hate this.
You'd be like, what the fuck is going on?
I hate everything. Lockwood is so he is like that. He is when you I think he's like a prototypical like straight man. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
not literally straight because who knows. But like he is like that
Right.
guy who's sitting there and he's like, I hate everything that's happening. Why is this
Yeah.
pretty woman surrounded by like what dead rabbits at one point?
Yeah.
Like he's like why why does she have like this weird tension with this werewolfy looking dude? Like everything, why does Mr. Heathcliff, why is he so upset that the ghost talked to me instead of him? Like, it's so good. It's the book,
I don't know if you know that I know them from Instagram, but it's the account I think it's Antiquated Omens or something. But the guy does like a Heathcliff cosplay.
yes, yes, he's so good.
And he is like he's a man of color, so it's like accurate Heathcliff. But like there was this one where he like pretends to be Linton and like he's like, "Oh my God, there was a ghost in my window." And like him as Heathcliff is like, "God damn it, Kathy. Like you're gonna appear to everyone but me."
It's like I love that one where he's like, what do you have that I don't have? And he's like,
Well,
typical
what's so
Kathy.
special about you? And then he's like, "But don't be late on your rent."
Yes, don't be late on your rent. Like, oh my God, that I love that account. He is like honestly very similar to what I imagined Heathcliff when I was reading. So like
Yeah.
that's like been my main solace. I'm like, and whoever he has who plays Kathy also looks much more
Yeah.
like Kathy as
I
described in
feel
the
like it's
book.
his wife, I
Oh,
think. I think they might be married. I don't know. They could just be cosplay partners.
that would be
Whatever.
so confusing. Whatever they are, I approve. And I think that that has been giving me solace in a way as like their cosplays of Heathcliff and Cathy. I'm like, this is the closest I shall get to what I these little clips will feed me for the next 20 years before they make the next Wuthering Heights. Assuming
Yeah.
we're still like around 20 years from now,
We'll
which
see. Yeah.
we'll see.
I mean, but that's the epitome of fandom, right? Is like disappointing source material and like fandom corrects it and keeps it alive.
Yeah, he's my fix it fic. I love him. Like he does a great, and I think he genuinely really understands what makes Wuthering Heights both interesting and also again people really need to read that with the idea that it's a very funny book. Like I'm sorry, I think that
Yeah.
it is there's so much of that book that is just so funny to me. Like yes, everything so bad happens, but it genuinely is like to because of the way that it's told through these narrators, you are watching everybody be like these are the craziest people I've ever seen in my life. Also, I mean, he is my landlord, so what am I gonna do about it? You
But
know,
it's
like
also like, why am I kind of into it?
yes, yes,
Am I
yes.
kind of into it?
Yes. Oh my God. Like literally, I will never get over Nelly just constantly being like, and as a note, he was kind of a 10 out of 10 in this moment. Like purely visually. Like,
Unfortunately, I do see the appeal.
yes, yeah, Nelly is like, she should not have done that, but he has grown up very nicely. And I'm like, you know what, Nelly? Like,
Same. Girl,
just
same.
embrace it. Same. Girl, same. Like I wish that I could have seen it for a Lordy in this role. I think I was so distracted by the fact that I was like hashtag not my Heathcliff the entire time. Like this is what 50 Shades of
Mhm.
Grey fans felt when they were upset at Jamie Dornan, I guess.
I guess.
I've never experienced this in my life. I was totally on board with Robert Pattinson as Edward. I was an early adopter. So I'm like I've never had this problem. But yeah, it was just at the end of the day, I would tell everybody read Wuthering Heights with an open mind and an open heart. And I'm not judging anybody who says that's not the book for them because I understand that it
Yeah.
is a weird book. It's not pleasant.
Yeah.
But if you really don't like that, or if you do, there's an array of romance novels that will give you the same vibe, but with a happy ending and people who are not. It is like so many romance novels. I was thinking the other day, I was like, if Heathcliff had stopped at just pure revenge, if Heathcliff had not abused Isabella and like three different kids and the dog, if Heathcliff had just taken Hindley out, that would have been fine.
I
Like
would have
if
been
she,
so on board.
yes, like he just went too far with the innocence, you know? So find a romance novel where he just stops at the bad people and it'll be fine.
I just wanted to real quick. I don't know if you had any thoughts on like the other like film influences that I think like
Oh
Margot
yeah.
Robbie cribbed by, which she's kind of like known for. Like we were talking about, Talented Mr. Ripley was fully Saltburn, but like this is like Gone with the Wind. I mean, you saw that like from the moment they released the poster, I was like, oh, so she was trying to do Scarlett O'Hara and Brett Butler, which is interesting when you think about her complete refusal to engage with race and the fact that she's cribbing so much from Gone with the Wind. It's like, oh, okay.
I had somebody on Threads try to argue with me today where they said she's trying to, by directly referencing Gone with the Wind, she is trying to critique
Uh,
the type of old South. Like she's comparing the romanticism of the old South that is what Gone with the Wind to Wuthering Heights, and she's critiquing the class and racial system. And I'm like, you can't do that on Whitewash the movie. Goodbye. But also, Wuthering Heights and Gone with the Wind are like two opposite books. I've read both books. I've
they're
seen both
not, yeah. I read them at the same time for the like, because at 12 years old was going through a like, let me read all the
all the old
classic
stuff.
literature.
Same, same, same. I think a lot of us did that. I was like this.
Yeah.
I think I read them the same year. But
Yeah, I
yeah, I
did.
think that definitely Gone with the Wind. I think Margot's performance was like completely. One
Fully.
thing I can say about Gone with the Wind is Vivian Leigh is a great actress, a legendary actress, and she has an easier time selling that type of character than Margot did in that movie. But she was trying to do Scarlett O'Hara.
Although interesting in terms of like movie lore, the Laurence Olivier Wuthering Heights, like those he and his co-star famously did not get along, and it was because he wanted his girlfriend Vivian Leigh to play
Yeah,
Cathy, which I don't think she would have been able to do, and then also play Scarlett O'Hara. Like I don't think like because they're the same. She would have played them the same, and I think it would have been like everyone would have been like, "Oh, she's just the same character." Like I don't think Scarlett O'Hara would have been as iconic if
I
she had
agree.
also played Kathy.
I agree. She probably would have been a great Kathy though.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as another bit of lore, I was just talking to somebody about this today. Merle Oberon, who plays Kathy in the Laurence Olivier version, famously concealed her heritage, her Sri Lankan heritage for like her entire life
Oh.
as a part of her Hollywood sort of backstory. Like she changed everything. And
Mm-hmm.
I find it just interesting that like Olivier is playing Heathcliff, a man of color, in that movie. And we actually have a Kathy who I'm not going to put any sort of
Right.
identity onto that actress, but certainly she believed that she would be perceived as not white in white Hollywood.
Yeah.
Certainly, she thought that that was a problem. So I find that very interesting on the meta level. But in terms of influences, definitely Gone with the Wind, definitely The Notebook.
Cruel Intentions.
Cruel Intentions, yes, that's so. Oh my God, yeah. Sarah Michelle Gellar, you did such a better job with this type of character.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a Sarah Michelle Gellar to play this type of like you need a Vivian Leigh, you need a Sarah Michelle Gellar, you need someone like that.
Someone who's just ballsy and just like is completely okay with being unlikable. Oh, then I guess like Dangerous Liaisons, I could see a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, those are both, isn't they're both like both based on the same like Alex Dumas. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that like the visuals of Wuthering Heights owe a little bit to that.
I think I saw someone mention The Princess Bride, and I think that because she tried to make
Yeah.
Heathcliff a Wesley,
Yes.
that was like part of the problem because Heathcliff is not a Wesley.
Yes. He's like
But they
as you
tried to do like the farm boy as you wish.
yeah. That's 100% true. I agree with that. She put out a list of movies that she said were influences.
But she left off Gone with the Wind, so
Left off Gone with the Wind because she was like, oh no, that might be too obvious. I think that there is, I'm trying to think, there's like there is a 2005 Pride and Prejudice moment when he comes out of the mist,
yes.
100%.
Yes.
I think she's very enamored deep down with these like melodramatic, and this is fine, so am I, but like just own it. These
Hmm.
melodramatic, weepy period pieces. I see that in Wuthering Heights, and that's in 2026. Like she wants like a movie where like, oh, but she doesn't want to admit that that's what she
Yeah.
wants. She wants it to be like, I'm also freaky. So
Yeah.
I'm trying, deep down, I'm like, just accept yourself and make a beautifully visual, like a gorgeous visual of a
Hmm.
movie where one of them wastes away at the end, but they'll always remember each other this way.
Always remember Casablanca.
Yes, we'll always remember Casa. She probably 100% maybe Casablanca, to be honest. Like I'm like now I'm like
Yeah.
she wants to do it in a Star is Born type of movie, and
Yeah.
she needs to accept that about herself and do it instead of torturing
Yeah.
us with this.
Yeah, that's the thing. She wants this the both the sweeping romance and she wants the kink. And because she doesn't necessarily have the skills for either. And then because she doesn't lean in, like she could make up for the lack of skill by leaning in, but because she's trying to do both, it falls flat.
It falls flat. It sucks, and I wish that because there are definitely movies that
Mhm.
have had kink and romance, maybe not very heavily, but like I would say everybody,
Secretary, The
Secretary,
Handmaiden.
yes, oh my God, like I would say that like a movie that she should watch, which is it's not a romance classic, but it is an erotic movie which does have complicated love hate and it's very kinky and it does have non-consensual sex, rape at some point, but is Lust Caution, directed by Ang Lee.
Okay.
That is a very hot movie that I, again, also trigger warnings everywhere, that is about a woman who is trying to essentially like honey trap a Chinese collaborator, a high-ranking Chinese collaborator in World War
Mhm.
II. He's collaborating with Japan and she is trying to take him down, but she sort of it is ambiguous about like he falls in love with her in his way, and it's like how much of her love is actual love and how much is like a Stockholm type of situation. But it is
Mhm.
very kinky. It engages with like the type of thing that I said was hot in this movie, where like at one point his eyes are covered, his eyes, which makes it so much more interesting.
Yeah.
But it is an incredibly morally ambiguous and sad and passionate movie. And it does engage with kink while also being oddly romantic. And
Mhm.
so it can't, but that's Ang Lee also. So that's like a
Right.
master of the craft, right? Like that's somebody who I think values love stories and is
Yeah.
not concerned with being freaky and embraces big emotion. She needs to just embrace earnestness, like embrace the Notebook may not be like a great film and it's got its problems, but like the reason why people still watch it to this day is that it embraces true feeling. And nothing about this movie, it felt so artificial, but it was definitely imitating the Notebook. That is my stand on that forever.
I
It's
wanted to be like a Baz Luhrmann, The
yes.
Notebook.
Moulin Rouge. Oh my God, I think that was
Yeah.
probably it's
Moulin
like yeah.
Rouge, Romeo plus Juliet, absolutely.
Yes.
Even probably some elements of like Gatsby, I think in terms of like set design.
Somebody on Threads, I wish I knew who it was, said that like the difference between her and Baz Luhrmann when he does like an adaptation is like Baz Luhrmann knows his shit. He knows the text inside and out, and he does love it because listen, Gatsby may not be perfectly accurate and know that it's kind of controversial in terms of its musical choices, but
Hmm.
thematically it is still faithful to the Great Gatsby.
Hmm.
Like he clearly understands it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the thing is like you don't have to make a beat for beat perfect adaptation. But if you're going to claim that you're making an adaptation, which I know she's been like, I'm not making an adaptation. That was a horrible British accent. I'm so sorry.
It's good. I support it. I support it.
Um, she's like, nobody could make an adaptation. But like she is. Like she's named it Wuthering Heights. You're saying you're making an adaptation. You still have to, if you're going to be doing that, make you have to stick to the themes of the book, which is why you can say something like Clueless is a good adaptation of Emma, even though it's like the polar opposite in a lot of ways from Emma.
Yes, yes. It's I am not, I want to make it so clear. Like, I am not somebody who's like, this must be a beat for beat perfect
Yeah.
adaptation.
I think that's boring.
Boring. Like I've read the book. I love the book. Like I I actually am totally fine. Like, do I think they had sex in the novel? Probably not in Emily Bronte's mind. You can make a lot of assumptions about teenagers running around in the moors unsupervised for a long time who like love each other. I don't know, but I am totally comfortable with them having sex in any movie adaptation. I get that that's also
Mhm.
something that modern audiences might they might have the passion communicated to them more obviously if they see them have sex. But you don't even have to like stick. There's so many things you could change. But I just want the themes to stay there. I want the
Mhm.
themes to remain as they're supposed to be. I think like so many people have been comparing Frankenstein, and I think that that's almost unfair because Frankenstein was made by like a master, and Emerald is
Right.
not that. But it's true that like he was so cool in that he brought in like I think that the little throwaway line about Victor Frankenstein's mother owning plantations in that movie, which does not exist in the book, and then seeing him
Mm.
trying to buy people at the gallows, things like that made it so much more, it brought in an extra layer while keeping the original themes intact, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And you could have done that with Wuthering Heights, but you wanted to make the
Yeah.
notebook, you know?
We've mentioned sprinkled throughout the episode several like watch this or read this instead. We have the Clay Pass, we have Lori Heath. Any other like recommendations that come to mind
Yes.
for you?
Immediately, I'm like,
You're
absolutely.
like cracks
Yes,
knuckles.
yes, yes. I would say read The Leopard Prince by Elizabeth Hoyt. Much better if you want like, oh, he's a stable boy type and she's rich, but like also
Hmm.
they don't hate each other and like it's super hot. Read that. Watch Lady Chatterley's Lover, the 2022 version. Excellent. Also is, in my opinion, even though there are no whips and chains or whatever, sorry for the stereotype. There is the kink. That
All
movie
right,
is so much,
Rihanna.
so much, yeah, there's so much, it's so much kinkier, it's so much hotter. So definitely watch that. I would say watch Secretary, actually, if you
Yeah.
want to get something freakier. That's good.
The Handmaiden, if you want to make it
Yes,
sapphic.
The Handmaiden's so good. I would say generally, I'm like trying to think of other authors. Anne Stewart, her House of Rohan series is probably a good entry point because it's like definitely freaky, but not as freaky as her other stuff.
Obviously, Cressley Cole, the Immortals After Dark series.
Just read that.
Read
And you
Immortals After Dark.
read Immortals After Dark.
If you haven't yet, listener, after like over 100 episodes of me telling you to read it, like I don't know what you're doing.
Oh, that just reminds me. Read Sierra Simone. I think that
Mm,
if you want to read something freaky, you could start in a lot of places with Sierra Simone. If you want to go into the deep end of the Gothic Sierra Simone, read her Thornchapel series. It is like
mhm.
that is true Gothic and that is super kinky.
Think even Priest in terms of like tortured man
Oh, Priest is great.
trying to resist.
Yeah. Priest is a good entry point with many entry points throughout the novel. And so I would say that. And yeah, I think that that kind of if you want to go old school, there's nothing wrong. If you really like the idea of like the bodice rip-roary type books, besides Anne Stewart, there's nothing wrong with reading a Judith McNutt. There's nothing wrong with reading a Joanna Lindsay.
Yeah.
Proceed with caution,
A
but
Loretta Chase, right. Some of them are more, you know,
oh, yeah.
less problematic than others. I would not recommend Whitney, my love.
No.
I hate that book with a passion, but I would recommend Kingdom of Dreams.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. I would also recommend Perfect if you want to read about a guy kidnapping a lady because he got convicted of murder, but he didn't do it. And also, he's a famous director, and they listen to Barbara Streisand, and it's great. I think that you get a lot of tortured man out of that one.
There's also, what is it, Paradise?
Paradise is so good.
Is
Yes.
it? Is that what I'm thinking of?
That one might actually be a little bit more Wuthering Heights adjacent. It is like
Yes.
it's a contemporary of its time, but they are like they loved each other when they were really young.
Star-crossed lovers, yeah.
Yeah, they were torn apart and now they're meeting again. And he's like, I'm gonna take revenge and I'm gonna ruin her life. And then as soon as he sees her, he's like, never mind. I do need revenge, but I also need to be married to her again. Like, so, it's so good. It's so good.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many good ones.
There's so many good ones.
So
I'm like, you guys, I'm just begging you. If you really think that this is like what you need in your life, just read a romance novel, please.
slide into either of our DMs. Like if you would like I got so many.
Oh yeah,
I have
yeah.
so much like whatever you want, I can find at least 10 like intro books for you.
But maybe this, Bridgerton didn't save historical romance, but maybe Wuthering Heights 2026. And then I'll be like, God damn it.
Cries in
Yeah.
historical romance.
I'll be like, Jesus Christ, what has happened? It's a monkey's paw curling. I'm like,
Oh
please
my
give me
God.
historical romance again, and I have to get it through this.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Last question. What was the last book that made you want to stay up all night reading?
Oh God.
Doesn't have to be a romance. You didn't literally have to have stayed all up all night because, we're adults with jobs, but like you wanted to.
Can it be a book that's not out yet?
Yeah.
Or does it need to be out? Okay.
Hear me out.
The second book which is very gothic, in Ivy Ophelia's Poisoner series, The Arachnid.
Mm.
I would highly recommend that series if you, first of all, check your trigger warnings. It is gothic. There are weird vampire things. But if you like the idea of a man who's like Heathcliff, she's so awful. She's so mean to me all the time. That is that series. And that is why The Arachnid made me. There is a scene where he's crawling, and I was
Perfect.
like, I cannot put this down. So yes, The Arachnid as a part of it's not out yet, but The Poisoner is. And I would pick those up after checking your trigger warnings because it is a very good dark romance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been on my TBR for a bit.
So good.
There's so many, but I keep adding more.
I know.
It keeps growing. I keep like trying to knock it down and then 10 more get added.
Yeah. It'll never end.
It's a
It's
never-ending cycle of self-abuse, honestly. Speaking of generational trauma.
much like Wuthering Heights.
Yeah. All right. Where can they find you? Where can the listeners find you after this episode?
The best place to find me would be Difficult Woman Reads, on Instagram. I am also on Threads. My Instagram is all about romance novels. Threads is largely about that, but also sometimes I freak out about figure skating.
Yes, I
So
have noted. In between, it's like Wuthering Heights, figure
Wuthering Heights,
skating, Wuthering
Wuthering Heights,
Heights.
Wuthering Heights, Wuthering Heights. Also, the figure skating world is so corrupt. Like it's
Holy shit.
yeah,
What's happening at the Olympics?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So I'll keep you up to date on both of those things.
perfect.
Yeah, find me there.
Wonderful. And as usual, listener, you can follow the podcast at We Read It One Night on Threads, Instagram, Facebook. You can email me, we read it one night at gmail.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and review. And thank you so much for listening. Godspeed, comrades.